Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular City Council meeting. Before we get started, I want to adjourn the special meeting of the City Council at 6 p.m. There's nothing to report, and would like to call to order the Elk Grove City Council regular meeting on Wednesday, September the 12th, 2018 at 6 p.m. Mr. Clerk, if you can read the Metro replay schedule.
Thank you, Mayor. This meeting of the Elk Grove City Council will be replayed on Metro Cable Channel 14 on Friday, September 14th at 1 p.m. and Sunday, September 16th at 9 a.m. It is being closed captioned. It will be webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website at elkgrovecity.org. For members of the audience who may have personal electronic devices, please place them on silent mode during the meeting. Elk Grove City Council welcomes, appreciates, and encourages participation in the City Council meeting. City Council requests that you limit your presentation to 3 minutes per person so that all present will have time to participate. City Council reserves the right to reasonably limit the total time for public comment on any particular notice agenda item as it may deem necessary. If you wish to address the council during the meeting, please complete one of the blue speaker cards, which can be found at the back of the room and provided to the Assistant City Clerk prior to consideration of that agenda item. Thank you, Mayor.
Awesome. Roll call, please.
For the roll call, Councilmember Nguyen.
Here.
Councilmember Detrick is absent. Councilmember Hume.
Here.
Vice Mayor Suen.
Here.
And Mayor Lee.
Here. And next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite the chief to lead us in the pledge, please. Okay, thank you. At the beginning of every regular city council meeting, we would like to invite the members of the public to join us in a moment of silence. So if you could, please. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Take us to section 2, approval of the agenda.
Okay, we've got an agenda in front of us.
Move approval. Second.
Got a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? All right, next item.
There are no items under section 3 for our closed session and no items under section 4 for our presentations and announcements. That'll take us to section 5, our general public comment.
Okay, section 5, we have one speaker signed up to speak, Mr. Mark Graham. Come on up, please.
Just as a note to the City Council, Mr. Graham did present a PowerPoint presentation to join his comments that he submitted yesterday within the 24-hour policy, but as I look, I do not see Mr. Graham in the audience.
Okay, Mr. Graham is not here. Going once, going twice. Okay, next item.
We did have another speaker sign up, which is Christina Bell.
Oh, I see. Christina Bell, come on up.
Thank you. I am so sorry I didn't even have this out. I just sat down. Okay. My name is Christina Bell. I've lived here in Elk Grove for 11 years. We recently bought on Trenholm Drive. 4 years ago, I moved to the community because I love this community. It's very safe. It makes me feel great. I'm coming here tonight to just ask for help. I don't quite know where to go. There's been a lot of reckless driving and increased speed on our street. On August 1st, a car impacted my house. It drove through the garage, and I just got home 8 minutes prior to. The garage is my main entry of where I live. So I know I got 3 minutes. So geographically, Trenholm Drive connects Laguna Boulevard and Elk Grove Boulevard. In between, there's a Montessori school at one end and Donner Elementary at the other. And there's 2 other middle schools and a private school close by. It's a very small street, but we have a lot going on. And there's also a park located on that street. The speed limit is 30 miles an hour. The average speed that I see going by is 40 to 45. There's many families that have lots of outdoor activities. Do I have a timer? Cool, thanks. The speed has become an issue of public safety. I've been wanting to do something for a while to alert drivers to slow down, humps, bumps, tables, lights, something to make a difference so our streets are safer. The urgency has come, well, like on August 1st, like I said, when a house impacted my house, from a reckless driver who was obviously speeding. The damage done could not be done by anything, going 30 miles an hour. I just started getting a petition for the speed bumps. I did get the printout of the petition. I just started getting things to sign, and the neighbors have been so thankful and so supportive. They're like, yes, we need something done on this street. As of today, I have 33 households who have signed from Laguna Boulevard to Rygate, which is only 2 or 3 blocks into Laguna Boulevard. And everybody else has been very supportive, saying, come to my house. You know, I just haven't made it there. I'm a full-time mom, I work full-time in the community. Since getting people to sign, I've heard of many cars getting hit on the street. A couple years ago, there was another impact to a local house. A mom told me that her daughter came home crying because she almost got hit by a car walking home from school. These are only the small things that I know about, and I'm afraid that it's going to get a lot worse, especially with the Costco development coming in. There hasn't been anything done to our street, the Trenholm area location, to prevent people making that main transition through to the Costco area. Oh, I'm almost done. Hold on, I'm almost done. So anyway, I know that in the petition, it says you need 4 main requirements. 75% of my neighborhood agrees. There are school and parks located within it. Sorry. We just don't meet the under 25 requirement and getting it okayed by the fire department. So I don't know where to go. I came here for help to know where to go. Maybe I could talk with the police.
If you'll actually, your first point of contact will be Mr. Murdoch, who's our Public Works Director over here.
sir.
But maybe, Chief, in the interim of any sort of long-term public works solution, we can do some enhanced enforcement on that stretch?
Yeah, we absolutely can. Captain Solomon he's in the back of the room. He'll be happy to talk to you after you're done.
Thank you. Sorry for going over my time, but thank you guys for your time and your community support.
Thank you. And maybe, Bob, can we also look into testing on the speed surveys on that road? Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Mark Graham.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mark Graham. I live in Elk Grove. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I sent you an email today that explains why I think having a citywide fiber optic network would be good policy, good for the city, and it would be a solution, an alternative to the proposal by AT&T to put cell antennas in residential neighborhoods. And I know there's nothing on the agenda for today about that, but perhaps the council members could read it at your leisure and help understand where I'm coming from on the issue. I also sent you an email which has the provisions that I think should be in any agreement with AT&T or any code amendment. So when you get a chance to read that over, I would appreciate it, and I welcome your questions and comments on that. Regarding my slideshow here, this is where I think what I think the city should do. Ask the residents of Elk Grove, do you want a policy where AT&T and the other telecommunications companies can basically bypass the city council and bypass the public and have a streamlined approval of their applications to put cell antennas in residential neighborhoods? Ask the people of Elk Grove. You know that's what's being negotiated behind closed doors ever since last August in the case of the agreement, and ever since this January in case of the code amendment. I think that's the best way to find out. Every 2 months, the city publishes this thing, the City of Elk Grove newsletter. This is a fabulous little newsletter. This one is from March, April 2017, and you could put an article in here explaining what the policy is that AT&T has requested, and simply let people know this is what's being worked on and saying, do you, an Elk Grove resident, want this? Now, they referred to these things as small cells. Verizon currently has 10 applications pending with the city of Sonoma, and I sent you an email about this today, to install these so-called small cells in residential neighborhoods. They are this big, Mr. Mayor. This, 48 inches high by 14.6 inches diameter. That's the size of the antennas that they want to install. This is not a small anything. I think a better term for it is a close proximity microwave radiation antenna wireless telecommunication facility. And the acronym would be CPMRA-WTF. I just want everybody to understand. Now, do you want one of these on a pole in front of your house? Do you have an idea what that might do to your property value if you're trying to sell your house? Or if you were shopping for a house and there was one of these antennas in front of a house you were considering and another house did not have one, which would you buy? I'm quickly running out of time here, but fiber to the premises is, oh yes, the city of Mill Valley has just passed an urgency ordinance to protect their interests and their residents' interests against the assault of these small, these cell antennas in residential neighborhoods. And I sent the council members a link to that, and I urge you to consider it. The best ordinance I've seen so far is the one from the city of Petaluma. They made a couple of changes and they voted on it again 2 nights ago. And my recommendations for what this city should put in its ordinance are largely come from that one from the city of Petaluma. So I urge the council to study it, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Seeing that there are no additional speakers, let's go to the next item.
Take us to Section 6, General Administration Information.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'll be brief. Several different things I wanted to highlight. One is this very successful Party in the Palms. And I congratulate and thank our hardworking staff for getting that organized and for council that were able to attend that event. We had over 550 students participate in that, which is a 30% increase over the prior year. Great success. I want to also note the Elk Grove Library has extended its hours throughout their system. We're one of the libraries that have benefited from that. Hours are going to be extended from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., closed on Sundays. Elk Grove History Week is coming up. Several local organizations have joined together to recognize the last full week of September as Elk Grove History Week, September 22nd through 29th. Daily events and activities are planned that week, including cemetery tours, a plow to plate dinner, a lecture on the history of hops, Pinkerton picnic in the park, and a hops and brew fest. The city has partnered with the Elk Grove Chamber of Commerce to co-host the Old Town Elk Grove walking tour on Wednesday, September 26th from 6 to 8. Details in these events can be found on the city's website. Another event coming up is the Costco grand opening. That's scheduled for September 27th at 7:15 in the morning prior to opening to the general public at 8 a.m. Also, a save to the date, a Rental 101, Basics of Renting for Landlords and Tenants. Code Enforcement Division will host this seminar about the rights and responsibilities of renters and landlords on Thursday, September 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the council chambers. A couple of the ongoing city projects I wanted to highlight. General plan, public workshop to receive comments on the draft environmental impact report will be held tomorrow in the council chambers at 6 p.m. More information available on the city's website. Civic Center site continues to progress. The project is for the Aquatic Center is behind schedule. We don't have an opening date yet. The city's continuing to work with a contractor to get that project open as soon as possible. Right now, the city is working with CSD staff on programming and getting that facility ready to open as soon as possible. The community center, we're excited. There's going to be a cafe that's part of that. We just released an RFP for local restaurant operators and other aspiring cafe or operators to run that facility for the city. The information is available on the city's website. The proposals are due coming up on October 8th. Public art, we're recommending several changes on public art for the Civic Center that we'll be bringing back to the council at the next council meeting with just some relocations and some other clarifications on a few things. But that project is moving forward as the site continues to progress. We'll be getting close to doing the preparation for installation of the art later this fall. I think that highlights the areas that I wanted to bring to the council's attention. All this information is available on the city's website for members of the public who would like to go take a little bit deeper look at that information, and I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Any questions? Nope, no questions. All right, let's go to council reports. Start with Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. Other than attending a couple of community events, I just want to highlight a few. We did a meet and greet with the Filipino community where we had Keita Burns perform, and he's a young gentleman who won the So You Think You Can Dance contest, and it was wonderful. So the vice mayor was there, and Councilmember Hume was there with me as well too. Had the ad hoc committee, the career development with Mayor Lee. We're moving forward with inviting a few community nonprofits in the area to discuss this further. I think the mayor may want to talk a little bit about it too, so I won't go into details. And then I had another ad hoc committee, the diversity audit with Councilmember Hume. I do want to thank a few folks that showed up, and Connie Conley was there, Kendra Lewis, Betty Williams, Tracy Stafford, and I know Lynn Wheat was really involved in the 2 community meetings that we had done previously before the audit came out, and she wasn't able to be there this last time we had it, but it was a really good conversation. I also want to thank our city manager, Jason, and Kara, who was also there, as well as our HR director, Jackie, as well. It was a really good conversation to be able to have with some of the committee members that attended the first meeting. Councilmember Hume and I were able to kind of dig a little bit deeper into it, and what came about is that we're going to move forward with some of the recommendations. We're going to move forward with all of the recommendations, and in 6 months, we're going to come back again and report out to the community. I'll stop there just in case Councilmember Hume wants to add to that. That's it, sir.
All right, Councilmember Hume.
Thank you, Mayor. Attended the Construction Careers Ad Hoc Committee meeting with the Vice Mayor. Had I think, a fruitful discussion with some of the representative from the carpenters and from the building trades, as well as Public Works Director and City Manager. I think we're sort of drilling down to some language and some pathway toward negotiating some sort of language that will work. As was mentioned, had the community sort of debrief on the diversity audit and next steps. I want to thank all of the members of the community that came out for that, as their names were mentioned. Mara Shergirl would be another person that was there and provided some good comments. But I really think that the city manager, interim city manager, did a great job sort of breaking down and listening and recognizing some blind spots and talking about how to make the next steps inclusive, and the deputy city manager as well did a great job of kind of lining out the short-term implementation of some of the easy recommendations and getting buy-in on what some longer-term best practices might be. So I think it was a good meeting. Was not able to attend RT on Monday night. Sounds like I missed a pretty robust discussion on streetcar funding, so that's it's going to be interesting to come forward. Had a regional sanitation district board meeting this morning. Nothing that I can report out of closed session, and not much else was on the agenda. Paratransit and the Sacramento Transportation Authority meeting tomorrow. And then I have a couple of items that I'd like to discuss as far as council comments and agenda items. I had a phone call from former Mayor Rick Soares, who talked to me a little bit about some ideas he had of how to address homelessness, which then I followed up a conversation with Supervisor Don Natoli and to get his input on some things. And one of the things that he mentioned that they're running into in trying to apply their federal funding, because as many of you may know, homelessness and wraparound services, that is an obligation of the county, not necessarily of local government. And he said one of the frustrating things is the low barrier entry requirement of federal funds. So I'd like, and she can do this offline, but if Sarah could get me some sort of information with respect to what sort of strings are attached of who you can and cannot allow to participate in our programs for federal funds or for state funds are committed. And then the other thing is, I know that we had an item to bring back putting our national motto in council chambers, and some things have come up with respect to that recently. And I think we're in a political season where people are already feeling a little bit charged, and I don't know that I necessarily want to sit through deliberations on the appropriateness of our national motto during that season. So I'd ask if council would like to just table that item.
I support that.
And then my last thing, and I'm kind of grabbing a third rail here that I probably shouldn't grab, given the aforementioned season. But we, at the Party on the Palms event, we were going to be issuing a key to the city, and I received an email complaint, and in fact, I think we all did, referencing sort of the tenor of that entertainer's art. And while I certainly support her making that music, I don't know if you all happen to take the time to look up some YouTube videos. I find her language and the content of her songs generally offensive. And I just would ask that we maybe hold the key to the city to a little higher standard going forward. She's also a very young individual who has a lot of life mistakes that could potentially happen in front of her. So I just, again, I think success is a great thing and it ought to be heralded, but just success on its own doesn't necessarily qualify you for the key to the city, in my regard. Soapbox off.
And I think the Vice Mayor and I struggled on that as well. We watched the videos in deliberation. What was, for me, was the deciding factor really was how the students responded to that. In particular, I think we have an opportunity to check with the Youth Commission, and there were many young people who was very responsive and recognized her success. Hear what you're saying, and I'm right there along with you. It's, some of her lyrics were offensive, but we were actually looking at her lyrics in which was released in mainstream, not just the YouTube version of it, yeah.
There was a lot of debate, and I was extremely hesitant myself. I think one was recognizing the popularity with some of our youth and basically having an opportunity to make the Party on the Palms a little bit more successful event. It's an event strictly for our teens. And then what I tried to, wrestle with was our age group and demographic and what we deem as art and, things. I mean, my own parents were kind of echoing in my mind when, for our age, whether it was Beastie Boys or Run DMC or, things that were always very, just provocative and rebellious for our generation. So it was tough. It was tough, and so I kind of had to take a step back, and to some people this is art, not necessarily the lyrics per se, because I know staff, we were making sure that the performance that was going to be held was definitely something that was appropriate for the current audience. And then highlighting the fact that as a young person, she received her business degree from USC, with I think it's a 3.6 GPA, and was going to be awarding a scholarship to the kids there. We were not paying her so folks knew she was coming here and performing and doing the scholarship award, highlighting education, having gone to Monterey Trails High School. So, on the balance, on the whole, that's where it kind of fell. But it wasn't without much deliberation and debate on that. So, but your comments were definitely noted. Thank you.
I'll also add that I felt the same way you did too, Councilmember Hume, and being the youngest one, and that's the kind of music I listen to. I'm just kidding. I found the lyrics to be not only offensive, but inappropriate, and we shouldn't be encouraging that type of lyrics, and giving somebody the key to the city is a really high prestigious award in my mind, right? And while she graduated, while she did well in school, while she is from our city, I think that also encourages some of our young people that what she's saying out there to other young folks and to the community is okay. And so for me, I just didn't feel like that was I agree with Councilmember Hume, and I think we need to vet it a little bit more. I think just because she's done successful as far as her education, And I understand the art behind it as well, too. There are plenty of other folks that have done wonderful things in the arts industry, and I just don't feel like when you have somebody that is rapping or singing and exerting such language that is not just offensive to me, but maybe offensive to other parents as well, too. And if they found out their children was listening to such type of a music and that this individual received the key to the city, I just think it's a reflection on us as a city.
Okay.
Noted.
Vice Mayor.
So, went to the Elk Grove Soccer. We had talking about kids. We were awarding kids for their the Elk Grove Soccer for their grades 3.5 GPA and 4.0 GPA. Had a chance to address them. We mentioned Party on the Palms, which was more successful than last year. Glad to see that trend continuing, giving our youth an opportunity to get out and enjoy themselves. We had the SACOG Transportation Committee, and then tomorrow we have Councilmember Hume and I have our Sacramento Transportation Authority meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Hume, you have one more thing.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I really apologize. I forgot to mention, I'd like to get council concurrence to put together a proclamation for the Assistance League of Sacramento. They are celebrating their, I believe, 50th anniversary, and they do all kinds of great programs, such as providing clothes and backpacks and hygiene kits for elementary school children, teddy bears to hospitals, women giving clothing to women re-entering the workforce. And so they serve a lot of Elk Grove people, and they're celebrating a milestone in their existence. And I just wonder if I could coordinate with the city clerk and issue a proclamation.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Missy, I had an opportunity to go to Grand Rapids, Michigan to work with other mayors on the mayor's innovative projects. Now, what was interesting, and I brought some information back in which I'll share with the members, is the various number of projects across cities within the United States that were pretty innovative, things that we would not necessarily think of. And what I had an opportunity to do is just to see some of the things that other mayors and other council members across the nation that are doing. And so that certainly was very informative. So you had an opportunity to participate with Party on the Palms. I brought my 2 teenage boys, and they thoroughly enjoyed it, and they thought it was something that's pretty hip and pretty cool. So kudos to staff, Jody Christian, and the whole law enforcement officers that came in force. I felt completely safe here, with anticipation of the superstar coming. But obviously, she had a conflict in schedule. So nonetheless, it was a wonderful event, and I think many of the young people that I had a conversation with are looking forward to it for next year. I had an opportunity to participate with Folks Ranch's 3rd annual Multicultural Festival. That was an event that is celebrated on an annual basis, and it's something that I think it coincides with our multicultural celebration as well, in that many different cultures within the school are celebrated with dances, food, and what have you at the elementary school. I had, as a member, when mentioned, we met with the ad hoc apprenticeship program, and we discussed about how we can actually assess and measure out the existing apprenticeship program in the county with the various different programs, how this will integrate with the CWTA that we've been discussing. It was very fruitful in that we now have a direction, and we have a letter that's going out, I believe, Kara, it's going to go out into the various organizations, which will bring them forward. And then the next step would be to talk to the trades and to figure out how this would look like in a community workforce training agreement. I have a GSAC tomorrow. I had sanitation today, nothing to report. But in terms of the CWTA, my interest here is obviously we have 2 ad hoc committees. We're working very hard. But my sense is we don't necessarily have a a deadline as to when we're going to bring back to council. I know that at the last meeting, I had an opportunity to kind of highlight and respectfully, Vice Mayor, you did mention that staff did have that, but I wanted to make sure that everyone had a copy of that, and I think that is an opportunity for us to use that as a roadmap. My interest is to put a date in which we can expect for this to come back for a discussion in open session with members of the community, members of the trade, and council members.
Well, you're talking about the City of Sacramento Project Labor Agreement?
I'm referring to the Sacramento Community Workforce Training Agreement.
Otherwise known as the Project Labor Agreement?
Those are your words, not mine.
I'm just
But
saying.
I'm calling it the Community Workforce Training Agreement,
Okay.
which, again, highlighting the fact that we are looking at opportunities to leverage our government resources to invest locally, to address, apprenticeship programs, to build that so that any sort of projects that we are sending out, we will be able to be inclusive and leveraging those limited resources.
I'm not arguing the merits of it, Mayor. All I'm asking for is, I just want to clarify what you're talking about. If you're talking about that agreement that the City of Sacramento approved, it was an agreement that took a year of talk, so I guess
Over a year.
over a year. So if you're looking for a deadline, I don't have one for you. And I just want to make sure that we're
What
not
I'm
violating any, Brown Act rules by continuing to talk about.
Yeah, we
this
probably
item.
shouldn't continue to talk about this. What I'm asking for is consensus to bring it back to council so we can discuss it.
So if I can weigh in here, and I don't want to talk too much about a non-agendized item, but at the meeting that we reported on in the council comments, we did review the City of Sacramento agreement. Staff has done a great job of parsing that agreement. There's a lot of stuff that are completely not applicable to the City of Elk Grove. The trades were in agreement that there is a lot of negotiating that needs to be done, and that there's really sort of two paths for the discussion, one with respect to the pre-qualification language, and the other with respect to any kind of overarching agreement. And so we are diligently moving in a forward progress, but I don't think that there's any way to sort of fast-track a deadline for when we can have all of that information fleshed out. There's a lot of moving parts to it.
So as we continue to talk about this, it makes me uncomfortable that this hasn't been agendized. Mr. Hobbs, if you can chime in.
So your discussion right now is whether to agendize, and I think what I'm hearing is focusing on what is being agendized. So I don't see a legal problem right now, but what I think you should come to terms on is whether or not to agendize this or not.
So I'm looking for a consensus to agendize this so that we can speak about it in public.
I think we had, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we have two ad hoc committee for a reason, right? So Councilmember Hume and the Vice Mayor is discussing the agreement with the trades. You and I, Mayor, are working around workforce development with young people, with the community, and before we can even put anything on the agenda or move this forward, I feel like we haven't even had the chance to move our ad hoc committee to the next step, meeting with the community members and seeing if it's even something they can take on and do. So how can you agendize this conversation when we haven't even started our conversation with the community yet?
And my only point, excuse me, Mayor, my only point is let us do the work that we're trying to do, have the conversations. We will when we're ready, when we're done, we will bring it ourselves.
My feeling here is there's no reason why we couldn't continue to have the alcohol conversation. And that's something that Sacramento has built a roadmap. We should be aggressively going this direction. That being the case is that building ad hoc committees for the sake of delaying it sends the wrong message to the community. I think it's important for us to have a timeline so that we can actually bring it back. But what I'm hearing is there's no interest in bringing it back. And so I'm fine with that. All I'm really looking for is consensus so that we can bring it back for further discussion on the dais in the open so that we can have a weigh-in from the community.
I mean, one, I think we're Elk Grove, we're not Sacramento. Two, we need to do our due diligence and make sure we flesh this out fully before we start discussing about things like this. We haven't even had a chance to discuss our ad hoc community or our ad hoc committee with the community like we said we were going to do yet.
And I'm just curious, why do you think it is a roadmap, other than being the same type of document? Why do you specifically think that that's a roadmap?
Well, you know,
What
again,
sections of that agreement?
Mr. Vice Mayor, as we embark on this, I am very uneasy about further discussing this until we actually bring it back to council. I'm fine with the firm statement that each and every one of you are saying that you don't want to bring it back. That's fine. I'm just saying that I'm prepared.
That's
to
not
bring
what
it
I
back.
said at all, and I don't
Yeah,
appreciate it being characterized that way.
I agree,
I just
absolutely.
said from this dais, we are making forward progress. Allow us to do some heavy lifting away from this dais with the trades, and then when there is something to discuss, we will bring it back. But for you to characterize that we're forming an ad hoc to delay, that's just patently false.
Okay, fine. Then tell me, what's the timeline?
I just find it interesting, you think it's a roadmap, but I don't think you've even read the document, so how would you make that statement? If you have, I'm here, I mean, correct, tell me why you think it's a roadmap. I'm just asking.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, for
I'm just
you know,
asking.
pointing this out. But you know, again, we're going back to the issue of what exactly is a CWTA. You made a statement tonight that it's a PLA. I did not make that statement. My interest is to make sure that there are certain things that we can actually leverage our government money to go in appropriately to workforce development, to projects, to apprenticeship program. These are things that are very important to me. And so for you
They're
to
important to
make
me as
those
well.
that kind of statement
What
is,
kind of statement?
is out of order.
What kind of statement?
So again, I'm going to clarify what I'm asking. I'm asking for a bring back to the council. Either I have a consensus or not.
Sure, we can bring it back in 2019. I'll be in favor of that.
I'm sorry, which date is that, council member?
19, next year. We're
Next
going to
year.
need some time. Yep, we're going to need some time. This is why we have 2 ad hoc committees, so that way we can do our portion of it and they can work on their portion. I just don't understand, how can we put a date on there when we haven't even moved forward what we said we were going to do? We just had a meeting last week.
Sure. My whole intent to this is to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball. You know, if we don't keep our eye on the ball, there's not going to be any efforts to expedite this.
But we're reporting back to the community, our ad hoc committee, and what we're doing. So how are we not keeping an eye on this?
Well, we have no timeline.
How can you timeline a negotiation
I-
with the so many moving parts to it? I mean, we're talking
So,
about joint
you know,
apprenticeship training.
Let me offer this. Obviously, we're not going to settle this.
Why don't you just
there's
tell
an
us?
interest in bringing it back in 2019. Are we
Wait a
okay
minute.
with that?
Wait a minute. Why, as Councilmember Hume was alluding to, this is a complex document. If you're so certain that it can be brought back, I want to know why. I believe in the merits of the document, the project labor agreement, which is also a community workforce agreement, that they are synonymous. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. I would like to know what you think is such a roadmap that we could schedule something, since you're so insistent upon scheduling it as a date certain, and I'm
This is not a
telling you,
schedule for a vote. This is scheduled for a discussion.
there's still.
Why are you uncomfortable about bringing it back?
There's a work product that we're working towards, and we don't like you, when I say we, to Councilmember Hume's points earlier, you are putting words in our mouths, and we don't appreciate that.
I'm
And what
just
I'm telling
asking
you,
please clarify.
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you that I don't believe you've read the document. I don't believe you know why it's a roadmap or not a roadmap. And you're trying to simplify or oversimplify what we're trying
So
to do here.
let me interrupt you.
And
Please stop telling me what I have done and I have
Well,
done.
you just
I don't
asked me, so I'm
appreciate that,
answering you.
Vice Mayor. And I think that's inappropriate.
So we both don't appreciate certain things.
It's fine. So we
that's
can
fine.
agree
Okay.
that you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing.
Oh,
The
then
most
good.
important
I'm
part
finally
is
we
this.
agree upon that. That's good.
Most important part is, look, if we don't have a consensus, that's fine. All right. If we don't have a consensus, that's fine.
Keep the politicking for
All
the
right?
campaign.
Okay. So can we move on? Can we move on? Please. Please quiet. Okay, I'm fine with that. If you guys are not comfortable with bringing it back, I just want to go on record that I would like to see it sooner than later. Okay? We good? Okay, let's move on. All right, next item.
Take us to Section 8, consent calendar items.
Okay, we have one member of the public sign up to speak, Lynn Wee.
Good evening. I keep telling everybody council meetings could be fun. So this is on 8.4. I went into quite a bit of detail the last meeting, and I recognize it's just under consent. But again, I don't like the idea of rezoning in our SEPA area, which was supposed to be a plan for bringing employment centers and moving those to other areas with the anticipation that that could be completely removed in the future. My second thing is I just kind of want to comment on the key to the city. I'm not quite sure how you all decide to give a key to the city, but I know each and every generation has had music come out that has offended that particular generation, and they don't know how the young people could like it. For instance, my parents said, turn the noise off. So for me, for my children, I didn't like the profanity in the music, but it seems to be there. And I don't particularly watch what's on YouTube. But I think that you as a city, were acknowledging a young person that has graduated from one of our high schools, moved on and graduated from college, and that's what I saw and read, and that's what stuck in my mind. Not particularly the type of music, and I didn't need to go there because it's not music that I listen to. But if we're to encourage the young people that live in our community, and we decide to give somebody a key, I think that then taking it back or saying what we find is unacceptable when going to YouTube and seeing more is not a right thing to do. I think it's setting some really bad examples. Either we need to have some real clear guidelines on who gets a key and who doesn't, or we don't do the take-a-back. I just don't think that that's really good. We have a better definition. I think that this young lady, and this is just my opinion, I'm not going to go and look at the YouTube clips. I don't need to. But if she's giving scholarships and she's coming back and students in our community whose parents allow them to listen to that music, I think then we need to recognize that. She has successfully received a degree, which our high schools here and junior highs, I hear it early on, future college graduates, then we should keep to giving the key. So that's just my opinion for what it's worth, and I know we can agree to disagree on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wheat. Seeing that there are no additional speaker, want to close public comment. And we have a consent calendar in front of us. I'm moving for a motion.
Move consent.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Next item.
Take us. Section 9, our public hearing, starting with item 9.1, which is public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance amending the Old Town Special Planning Area.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Christopher Jordan. Item before you this evening are amendments to the Old Town Special Planning Area. Dive through them quickly if I can. As you're aware, the Old Town area of Elk Grove Boulevard corridor between Elk Grove, Florin, and Waterman is governed by a special planning area document. It's essentially a miniature zoning code for the area. Originally adopted by the county in 1985, after incorporation, the city did some comprehensive updates to it, resulting in adoption in 2005. We go through on a regular basis and do updates to the document. Last big one was in 2014. We're scheduled to start a larger one later this year. In preparing for that, and based on some feedback and interest we've gotten from folks looking to do things along the corridor, we saw an opportunity to bring forward some potential amendments for consideration, which is what this item's about. Part of this stems from the fact the way uses are regulated in the SPA. It's a very simplified approach. It's only about 16 or so items long, whereas when you look in the citywide zoning code, it's a list of several pages describing various uses and whether they're allowed by right or require a permit or not permitted. The way this format works is it leads to some ambiguity, and oftentimes we have to come through with either amendments to the code or requests for clarification of the Planning Commission to consider individual uses. So that's where this is sort of stemming from at this point. So what we're proposing this evening are changes to the SPA to allow bars, breweries, wineries, and brew pubs in the corridor in commercially zoned properties with a conditional use permit. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means. But essentially, these are alcohol beverage sales for on-site consumption with subordinate food sales, if those are provided under state licensing, or alcohol beverage sales for on or off-site consumption or tasting that may or may not include food service for product that's produced either on-site or in an affiliated location and is required and licensed by the state. These sorts of uses, we do allow them under certain conditions elsewhere in the city. For instance, wineries and breweries are allowed in all of our commercial zones by right and with a minor conditional use permit in the industrial zones. Bars, on the other hand, are allowed by right in our higher commercial zones, the general commercial and shopping center districts, and with a conditional use permit in limited commercial zones or the LC zone. So as I mentioned, we are seeing some interest in potential uses, either relocating or establishing new uses in these categories within the corridor. From staff's perspective, adding these uses could further economic development activity along the corridor, providing additional destinations for folks to go to, becomes an attractor, and now people that are frequenting these businesses could potentially frequent other businesses on the corridor. So what is a conditional use permit? This is a discretionary approval by the city. There's a choice in approving this. It's approved by the Planning Commission or the City Council if there's a rezone action accompanying with it or some other sort of legislative action. It's subject to a public hearing notice, so everybody within about 500 feet of the site would receive a notice of a hearing before the Planning Commission, be able to come and provide comments and testimony about it. When we evaluate these projects, we're looking for consistency with two findings, which are on here. First, consistency with our general plan, and we have policies and standards that exist in there. We also look to see if the use would be detrimental to the health, safety, peace, morals, comfort, or general welfare of people residing or working in the area, or the general welfare of the city. And only when we make those two findings can we issue a use permit. We can condition use permits, and there's a list up here on the screen of some examples of how we may be able to do that, including hours of operation, limits on amplified sound or noise, requirements for security cameras, other physical improvements to the property that may be necessary in order to make those findings. Conditional use permits are revocable if people are not complying with those conditions. That would be something that would go back to the original approving authority. There'd be a hearing process for it and consideration of the evidence and a decision of whether to revoke or not. Part of the amendments also include changes to the parking standards. Again, as I mentioned, the SPA is essentially a mini zoning code. So in addition to regulating allowed uses, it also sets standards for parking. There's a one-to-one relationship between the allowed uses and the land uses that are in this particular table. So what we're proposing this evening is for these bars, breweries, wineries, and brew pubs that the standard for parking be one space per 500 square feet of customer area. The thinking here is that generally within bars you have a lot of customer areas, so that would be the same standard that we have for restaurants, which are included in the convenience retail definition, which is 2 rows above on this table. We're listing customer area, though, here because in the case of breweries and wineries, you tend to have a large industrial area at the back of the use where the brewing happens or the fermenting happens, and those tend to not be customer areas. So rather than penalizing those uses with square footage standard based upon their total gross area, just basing on the customer area would be appropriate. Again, these are consistent with what we do for restaurant uses in the district at 1 per 500. We had looked at a standard of 1 per 50 square feet or 1 per 3 fixed seats, which is what we use for restaurants and bars and similar uses citywide. But again, the SPA being a mini zoning code does have specific standards here that recognize the character of the area, the types of uses, the types of building configurations, the parking configuration, the parking configuration that's there. There are other city regulations regarding these uses to note. First, Chapter 6.32 of the Municipal Code deals with noise and does provide limits on the amount of noise that's allowed for particular businesses. In Title 23, the zoning regulations has other requirements for outdoor seating, particularly if you have more than 13 seats, it requires a minor design review permit. So just a couple of the things we have elsewhere citywide. State licensing, any alcohol sales are regulated by the state, requires a permit or license from the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control. In your staff report, we summarize a number of license types that are relevant to what we're talking about here, from types 2 through 48. You can see here on the screen. These cover the types we're proposing within the allowed use changes. I do also want to highlight types 41 and 47 that are here on the screen, on sale beer and wine for an eating place and general sale for an eating place, both of these being restaurant types. The state defines these uses as being bona fide eating places, meaning that they have sales for their food items that are above and beyond the sales for what the alcohol sales would be. ABC does monitor these on occasion and do enforcement actions, so we do know that they're tracking those things. The reason we're bringing this up is there are existing uses that have occurred, or uses that have come to the Old Town area over the last couple of years that have been looking to do some level of alcohol sales. They've all been classified as restaurants because we have the restriction on opening bars today. So again, you can see that here. We do have one bar in Old Town today. It is a legal nonconforming use. It's existed prior to the establishment of the SPA revisions in 2005. It may continue to operate in perpetuity. There's no requirement that it shut down based upon our existing regulations. Although if operations cease, they may only be reestablished within a 12-month period. They can't extend that upon approval of the city. There is no ability in the SPA to transfer that legal nonconforming use to another site elsewhere within the SPA. That's an important consideration to think about. So essentially what we have today is what the code currently allows. And again, recently established businesses have all been classified as restaurants. A number of public comments have come in about this. At the Planning Commission hearing last month, we heard a number of concerns regarding noise, parking, and disorderly conduct. All of these sorts of things can be regulated through the CUP process. We'd expect to see conditions about that. Other comments we've received, you do have in your packet this evening, the staff report, comments from Ms. Baird, which are on summarized starting on page 8 of the staff report. There's other support letters attached to the staff report as well. You do have green sheets on the dais this evening, and staff did receive one phone call from an area resident earlier today voicing concerns with traffic, parking, and accessibility, particularly on the Railroad and Elk Grove Boulevard intersection location. In terms of environmental review, a negative declaration pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act was prepared for the SPA back in 2005. Staff's reviewed that document relative to the proposed changes, and we do not identify anything relative to the changes that modifies or changes that analysis. The density of what's being considered intensity development is all consistent with that negative declaration. No special circumstances exist, and staff's recommending no further review being required. So a recommendation from both staff and Planning Commission, who heard this item last month and recommended on a 4-0 vote. Find no further environmental reviews required and adopt the ordinance as presented in your packet this evening. I'm available for questions if you have them.
Okay, question. Vice Mayor.
Thanks, CJ. So I was wondering about, we had talked about the parking, and we've heard a lot of comments about parking. Can you please give an overview of what you're doing right now, planning to do a comprehensive analysis of the parking?
So we did do an analysis of existing parking conditions a couple of years ago. There was a study that was completed, and it's available on the city's website for those that are interested. What it generally describes is that there are sufficient parking for the uses that exist down there today. Now, they may not necessarily be directly related to businesses that people are trying to go to, meaning you aren't parking necessarily directly in front of the business. You may be parking somewhere else, for instance, on a city-owned or leased lot that there's a couple of. With that sort of in mind, there are additional parking facilities we're intending to build, part of the city's property along Railroad Street, just south of Elk Grove Boulevard, west or east of the railroad tracks. We do have intent, and we budgeted in the CIP this year to start designing construction of parking facilities there. Public Works is working on that design now. I don't have a number of space count yet. They've not finished that layout, but there is intent to start that in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Member Hume.
Thank you, Mayor.
Questions?
I heard what you just said, but give me a back of the napkin guess. How many spaces will those new lots add?
I'll have to defer to Mr. Murdoch on that.
And I'm not even,
70 to 80.
70 to 80? Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, no questions? Yeah. Yeah, I figured you have a chance to talk to some of the residents, particularly the supporters of Bob's Bar.
I've definitely spoken with folks on both sides of the issue.
Okay, all right, great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I want to open for public comment. Actually, strike that. I want to declare public hearing open and want to open public comment opportunity. I see that there are a number of speakers signed up to speak. First speaker is Deborah Barrett.
Hello, I'd like to start out by mentioning my prior suggestions were offered as temporary suggestions to allow for some change while the update that's supposed to be underway in about a year or two from now. And that was given with a little bit limited scope of information. My main point is that Old Town Elk Grove is not protected by the general plan and other regulations for the nightlife, which is why the Old Town SPA restrictions are so important. Most of the old towns in other cities that are being compared to are a square rectangular old town that has a commercial focus. It's not a strip like our old town Elk Grove with residential surrounding and backing it right up against it. I am asking you to require planning to revise this amendment to make it more fair for both businesses and residents. The first thing, modifying the relaxed parking fairly for all businesses, including retail, convenience, entertainment, recreation, and culture, not just for the bar types. Number 2, protect the residential with the reduced noise levels to accommodate for the residential area that is in the backyard. And 3, provide adequate lighting for the increased traffic and not by charging the residents for the business's needs and for the city's desire for commercial growth. This might require allotting some funding for this type of a project. I'd now like to address the other cities' regulations that are being used as the limiting factors for this amendment they're relying on. Our general plan is very specific that noise levels is a big impact for quality of life, which also will reflect the quality of the neighborhood. The EGMC noise limit of 95, which is in that amendment, is for commercial. In comparison to the residential, that is 55 dB during the day and 45 at night. I'd like to give you a demonstration. Also, just so you know, typical speech is about 70 dB. A heavy commercial traffic area is 65 dB, and a quiet urban, so like in a quiet urban area, daytime would be normally 55 as well. A noisy urban area, like if you go to San Francisco, you expect about 75. So if you've ever stayed the night in San Francisco and it's noisy outside, that's usually about a 75 dB that you're hearing. With your approval, I'd like to take just a quick glimpse at what these levels really mean, because numbers to me made no sense. I thought 95 could be totally acceptable until I sort of gave it a go. Is that okay?
That's fine, so long as there's no foul language in the music.
I think I chose Ricky James, Give It To Me, because didn't have any bad language, and it was sort of like a fast-moving. Anyone know of any bad language? And I don't think there is.
That's fine,
Okay,
go ahead.
It's just going to be a clip.
Yeah.
Okay, so since this room, being a conference room and everything, conversation is around 70, I'm going to do 75, just so you hear 75, and then I'm going to go up to 90. My speakers don't even make 95. So 75. And I have an app on the phone that shows what the dB is, so they're going to say it. I might need to go help them. Oh, sorry. Are we there? Okay, so we're about 75 right here, I think. Okay, there's 75. That's 75 dB. So if you can imagine in your backyard, this might be what you'll be hearing at 75. Okay, now go ahead and turn it up all the way, slowly, so people aren't shocked. Both of them? Yeah, all the way, all the way. Okay, turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Okay, so that was only 90-ish. That's not 95. That level is the commercial. 95 is the commercial. And if you could imagine that in your backyard, because there's no barriers, and so 95 dB is really not protecting residential noise levels. I have good windows in my house. In my house speakers, I was able to make it to 95. And that was still very audible in the backyard when I closed the doors. Our general plan does not protect residents with this limit for noise in the general plan. When a business is literally next to a residence, as in Old Town, also ABC does not protect the residents for such noise. The Title 23 zoning for outdoor seating is only for 13 seats or more. That does not protect noise levels at all. It also doesn't protect if there's no seats. ABC regulations can make requests but not guarantee limits. They can request many things like limiting consumption hours, but not business hours. They can limit hours of music, but not noise levels. And they cannot regulate the noise level, that's on the city code. And for residents, especially for children, 10 o'clock is actually quite late to have music at 95 dB. The SPA needs to put in more limits and cannot rely on existing limits established from planned development areas. Otherwise, the residential area and family-oriented community will deteriorate at the cost of unleashing the Old Town commercial without solid restrictions. I believe there is a way to allow both to thrive in a happy coexistence, keeping our unique Old Town and still encouraging revitalization. And doing so will require the SPA to have some limits for the nightlife that's being added. There is no money in the budget for lighting and safety, as it says in this, this report, but I would encourage there to be some for the nightlife. This amendment also creates an unfair parking scheme. Businesses that have inventory storage, working space, and non-customer space should not be excluded from the relaxed parking. These other businesses are just as essential to the healthy mix. By opening up relaxed parking for just bars is unjust and creates favoritism for the bar-type businesses to be established. As I mentioned last time, a CUP does not protect the residents adequately when the code permits otherwise and you become a target for subjectivity. And there already are businesses that residents have issues with noise, traffic, parking, and safety. So it's hard to say that a CUP would change how.
Hey, ma'am, you're 2 minutes above and beyond.
I
You can
know,
wrap
my
it up,
daughter's
please.
supposed to finish. And then she was the other 3 minutes.
Where, right here?
Right here.
2005
Environmental.
environmental review did not include the same nightlife which is being included with this amendment.
That's it.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah. All right, next speaker is Ray Hostetter, and following Ray is Eric Stroud.
Evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Ray Hostetter, and I've been a friend of Mr. Alan Vito for about 35 years now. I met him a long time ago. And I just came tonight to introduce myself. I'm a general contractor, and I'm in the running to do the renovation to the building and build out the bar. I am looking forward to working with Mr. Darren and Mr. Antonio, right? And the process of plan review, and I just want you guys to know that it's going to be a beautiful place. You guys are going to be really happy with how it turns out. I think the issue with parking, the city has got this parking going in, I think is going to be a wonderful thing. And I want you guys to know that Vito, moving across the street, he's a good person. He's done a lot for the community. He's done a lot for children in this community. And I could talk for hours about the experiences that he's given me. And I'm going to keep it short, but I just want you all to know that I'm in favor of the amendment. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Eric Stroud. Following Eric is Alan Vito.
Thank you, Council. I must say that, Bob's Club, it's an entity in Elk Grove, and it has been for many, many years. Bob's Club is a neighborhood bar. It's the definition of local. It's where locals like us have gone to drink for years. As the city of Elk Grove prepares to approve this idea of revitalizing Old Town, and to reach out and invite people from outside the area to come and see this wonderful place that we call Old Town, or that we hope to become a wonderful place called Old Town. We have to remember the local residents who have kind of kept it alive this far. They've done a great service to this community. Bob's Club in itself has just got a charm and a character about it that really Elk Grove can be proud of. My name is Eric Stroud. I've been living here for over 17 years. During this time, I've held 2 different business licenses for the city of Elk Grove. I've seen a lot of changes in Old Town. I've seen things come and go and big change, sometimes good, sometimes bad. The decision to move Bob's Club across the street should come to you as a logical decision. It should be a productive decision. That's what this is all about. The city of Elk Grove could do a lot worse than having someone like Alan Vito set the tone and be an example of what the city of Elk Grove expects a business to run like in their very prideful Old Town. I've been blessed to know Alan Vito for 17 years. Watching Alan Vito's dedication to community, family, friends, and most of all, the kids of Elk Grove, it can't be overstated. During my time here in Elk Grove, Bob's Club has always been clean, it's been safe, respectable. At least they give me respect. It's a neighborhood iconic bar that people know outside of Elk Grove. We should be blessed as Elk Grove residents to have someone like Alan Vito who wants to invest his own money into Old Town. Alan Vito is a known commodity in Elk Grove. You know what you're getting with Alan Vito and Bob's Club. As a partner with Old Town, this should continue. Alan once told me they should bring more bars in, bring more businesses in Old Town. Competition is good. Competition is healthy. And most importantly, competition makes you do your best. I am confident once Elk Grove and Old Town revitalizes and the bars and the restaurants come in, Bob's will still be the best. In closing, projects like this, they always seem to come down to the need of parking. Is the city of Elk Grove looking on the right side of the coin in this issue? The question I have is, shouldn't we have these places of business encourage companies like Uber, mass transportation, walking? Isn't Elk Grove what we're trying to do, have a place where you walk from shop to bar to bar? This is the objective, I'm thinking, right? Alan Vito has provided a great service to Old Town for many years. He has been a great proprietor and steward to his current location.
You can wrap it up, please, sir.
Yes. He has invested his time and his money and his love to this community year after year, decade after decade. Alan Vito is an asset to Elk Grove and Old Town Elk Grove. At the end of the day, it's not a building that makes Bob's Club, it is Alan Vito. As a community, we cannot afford to lose him as a tenant and a business partner. If it came down to my vote, I will always vote to approve a request to move Bob's across the street. And I thank you for allowing me to extend my time.
Thank you, sir. Alan Vito, come on down.
Hello, council members. It's good to see you again. Vice Mayor and Mayor, thank you guys for having us again. I'm not the Alan Vito that he was exactly talking about. A lot of stuff for a young kid to do, but no, that's not me. That's my father. He'll be on after. But I just wanted to talk to you guys about the Elk Grove SPA. I want to talk, the project over there at the railroad was a $26 million investment into Old Town, correct? That's what I heard. So yeah, so $26 million, and that's going to be a big change for Old Town. You know, like we've had a lot of new things going in Old Town. One was the School of Rock. Actually, one of my bosses is Jason Klein. He's in the audience today. Was renovated an old building and did a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of changes in Old Town. But I just want to know that the businesses and people who have built Old Town into what it is today do not all boast the same assets. $26 million to renovate. We don't have. We're a small community of really dedicated and hardworking people. And I implore the city council to ensure that small businesses do not leave Old Town Elk Grove. Small businesses built Old Town into what it is today. And I agree that Old Town needs more commerce, and introducing larger players will hopefully lead to that. But where my concern lies is in the barrier of entry. If Old Town begins to cater towards the crowd of big businesses, where the only way you can get into a little piece of Old Town is if you have a $26 million renovation plan, or the city simply isn't willing to work with small business owners, instead they save deals for large contractors or foreign entities that have nothing to do with Old Town, well then we'll have lost the one thing that makes Old Town Old Town. That's the people that have worked it for many years. And if the city, and my family for a start, is willing to work with the city in regard to the build out of the old general store in every way possible, an old property that is desperately in need of renovation, but we have no intentions of just stopping there. If the city works with us in regard to the permitting process and the conditional use permit, especially the conditional use permit, my family will ensure that we create a framework for which other prospective Old Town business owners can look to for guidance and inspiration. We want to lay the groundwork for the whole next generation. My family business is the kind of family business that cares about every person who steps through that door, the business where everyone knows everyone else's name. And I grew up in that kind of business, and I learned at a young age what a community looks like. And I want to give everyone that same experience. The only way to make that happen is to ensure good businesses are not barred from getting in. Issues regarding sound, lights, and parking will all be brought up, but as we know, Old Town is a very unique place with very unique architecture and how everything's set up. There's not always parking for the place that we're trying to go into, but it is a very short walk to get there, and it will definitely influence more Uber and more ride sharing, which also when you go into a bar, you don't want people leaving and driving, right? So we're in a very new world. So yeah, the city will not be able to address all of these concerns like I'm saying alone. You will need to look out to go out to people sorry, I'll finish up. You guys will need to talk to people like us, people who are actually in Elk Grove every day and working in two different, I work at School of Rock and at the bar. I work with kids, and then I go over and I work with the adults, so I have both views of it. I see, kids walking out and then people walking out from just having a party, and it's a beautiful thing. Everybody just kind of works together. I mean, it's a very different world that we live in. Who would think that a school would be sharing its parking lot with a bar? You know what I mean? It's just, times are changing, and it's only for the better, I think. So I appreciate you guys for hearing me out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Alan Vito.
I can't believe I find myself here after all these years, but this is the first time I've ever approached you gentlemen.
Welcome.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Darren Wilson, thank you very much. As everybody knows, my name's Alan Vito. They refer to me as Vito. It's kind of crazy. But I am here in regards to the relocation of my family business. I'm put in a position that I could lose. I'm not going to lose nothing, but I'm going to lose the business that I've devoted my life to, and it's taking care of my kids and my mom, all of us. And I talked to Larry about it years ago, and Larry always offered me a building. Always told me, you know what, you're my friend, you've done a great job in business, and I'm always going to offer you a business. So this is about the relocation of my family business. This is the only option we have this is the only option we have really is moving over there to where Larry's building's at. I've looked at other buildings and other options. I have options in Sacramento. There's nothing that touches our heart like the business that we've had in Elk Grove. Same time, it's the best direction for my family and our customer base. Elk Grove needs more hospitality businesses in Old Town. My family and the Baker family went to show Old Town, e.g. Elk Grove, and our Old Town Elk Grove, our appreciation and undeniable dedication to our community. By that, the city standing alongside us in this costly joint endeavor, we as a whole have a chance to kick off a revitalization of Old Town Elk Grove like no other. Together, we, a collective of city, family, and business, together we can make change, good change for everyone by opening up parking restrictions, freedom from more liquor licenses, you open for all kinds of business, not just bars. I hear talk of hamburger joints, ice cream parlors. Business builds community. No business, no people. So here it is, Larry Baker and family, 30-plus years of business in Elk Grove. 25 years he's owned commercial property in Elk Grove. My family, 26 years of business in Old Town Elk Grove. Both families have been big contributors to our community over all the years we've been in business. Larry, gosh, man, you can come ask Larry for anything, he'll give it to you. Signs, banners, any kids group, get the schools, man, ask them. This guy's been giving stuff to everybody for years. I know, I've been across the street from him, been dedicated with him for years. But anyways, we ask you tonight to hear and understand our situation and our vision. With your help, we can together, in a respectful manner, put together a format for a conditional use permit that ensures that who is granted a conditional use permit is held, oh, that scares me when that happens, is held to the accountability and the conduct outlined in the outlining of the conditional use permit. And the Baker family, my family and the Baker family intend to set a high standard of what we as a whole will and not allow. One last note, my mom is in here. Nobody ever sees her. She's right back there, Mom. Hey, you know, my mom told me a long time ago, she said, you know what, I love it when people refer to me as Vito's mom. I go, stop it. She goes, no, I love that. I go, you know, there's one thing I want to be referred to. And when you guys make that vote today, and I'll give you about 5 years, and people are not going to talk to me and say, hey, that's Vito when I walk in a room. You know what people are going to tell me? You're going to tell me, hey, you know what? That's Alan's dad. And that's who I want to be. By you making the vote, I promise you, my son, he's walked with me in that bar ever since he was 6. He was walking at 6 months in a day, shaking hands and smiling to people and treating people right. He's grown up. It's the most beautiful thing in my life. And he wants to do what I do. And I'm going to tell you, my son, with the support of me, the family, this great community of people that show up to make me just fall apart, he is going to put the best business in this town, and he is going to respect everybody. That's what we do. That's why we're here. That's why we have such a community support, because we care about Elk Grove, and we care about people. And I thank you for letting me run over, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vito.
I thank God I'm going to be here. Mr. Hume, thank you.
Our next speaker is Larry Baker. Following Larry is Sue Hudson.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Larry Baker. You may also know my father, Larry Baker. He owns the Science Center in Old Town Elk Grove, I'm sure you're aware of. And he's been up here a couple times, and I've been at the Science Center since I was a little kid. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. And honestly, I think I should be, because this change is a huge deal for my family and Vito's family. And I strongly agree that you do make this change. You do pass this amendment, because it will ensure the future for the Science Center as a proud member of the community for the next 30 years. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Excellent, thank you. Sue Hudson. Sue Hudson.
Hi, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to voice my concerns about the impact of the adopted ordinance concerning the bars and breweries and pubs on Old Town, particularly in the neighborhood, the community. I want to make a statement that I am not anti this ordinance. I support business and vibrant business in Elk Grove. my family's been in business in Elk Grove. It started over 100 years ago, so we've been around the neighborhood for a long time, and we've seen a lot of changes in Old Town. I think that my first concern is the community, because now I'm retired. We like to live a nice, quiet life in the neighborhood that we have always known, and we would like to see that not change or be impacted by bars and breweries and things like that any more than it already is. I live on School Street. I live on the alley that runs behind, just for an example, Happy Garden and Lola's. And then across the railroad tracks, it's Bob's Bar. And so that's all the closest liquor establishments that would impact me, mostly because of the parking. Parking is a big problem, and the alley's a big problem. There's alleys all over in the area you're talking about. And we have, the front of my house has been a parking lot for the businesses for years. I park on the side of my house on what used to be my lawn because I have no parking most of the time, and I don't really care. You know, I mean, my family's always been friendly to the businesses, and we've always appreciated, you know, that they're there. That a lot of them are neighbors and old friends and things like that. So, and we used to do business with them, so we, you know a lot of them, and we support them completely. But just as an example, now there's the foot traffic, the parking is one element. What happens a lot of times is there's foot traffic from the bars to get to their cars so they can drive away. And I think you guys probably know what that's all about. They don't want to get spotted or, you know, targeted for drunk driving or something like that, and I can understand that fully. And maybe they aren't drunk driving, but who wants to get pulled over anyway at 2 o'clock in the morning? So I have a lot of traffic across my front lawn, might cross my side lawn. During the day, this last week, I had my neighbor inform me that she had to call the police to come and remove somebody that had either passed out or was sleeping on my front lawn. And just to make this a short thing, really quick, the foot traffic in the alleys, lighting in the alleys would be great. I'm also kind of concerned about the noise levels, which Deborah displayed for you pretty well. And then also the foot traffic includes kids that are walking up and down Main Street. If we get too many bars and these kinds of liquor serving places in a small area, I'm kind of concerned about what is the ratios. I've heard a little bit about that. So how it's going to impact our communities that way. I mean, it's already impacting to a degree, but I'm a pretty tolerant person, so, and I just kind of think that I'm pretty much ground zero for a lot of it, so. But anyway, I think that the kids that walk up and down Elk Grove Boulevard to and from school, the library, the teen center, there's all kinds of attractions there that also the kids kind of hang around and stop at. And we have to be real considerable about that. And I think that they made a really good example how the School of Rock and Bob's Bar seem to be able to survive there. And that's kind of like, you know, in a congenial habitat, sort of, I guess you could call it. And that's how Elk Grove has always been, really, and I like to see that continue. But please take into consideration some of our concerns, because we would like to know that we have your support in possibly, you know, helping us out on some of the issues if they get out of hand. And I would like to put a nip in the bud before it gets out of hand, maybe, possibly.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Reynold Rao, and following Reynold is Larry Baker.
Good evening, Council. I'm Reynold Rao. I was born here. I bought a lot just to the west of the railroad tracks and just to the north that borders the commercial property that we're discussing this evening. And I built my home there in 1977. And my back fence, which is just a regular little good neighbor fence, and it just borders the commercial property. So my only concern really is one of these businesses could go in 5 feet from my back fence. And maybe considering a sound wall or something like that would be at least something to consider. So that's my only concern tonight. I know we have to have new businesses and things change and go on, so that's the way life goes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Larry Baker.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Okay, I want to thank the members of the council for input and encouragement after Alan Vito and myself reached out to them to address a situation that had developed to threaten the survival of Bob's Club. What I thought was a simple matter of neighbor helping neighbor turned out not to be the case. Old Town had rules and limitations that we were unaware of. These guidelines adopted at that time were trying to guide and preserve the small business community known as Old Town. However, no one could foresee the future and how these rules might adversely affect members or development within that community. Now, whether this was luck, coincidence, or divine intervention, the city saw a need to make changes to the special planning area. I am here representing myself as a 30-plus years business and property owner within that community to say I am in favor of the change. I would urge, or rather ask, please, City Council vote in favor of the SPA amendment to include bars, pubs, breweries, and similar businesses, not only for the good of Old Town, but also for my friend Vito, his son Alan, for the good of their lives and everyone else's life that they have touched in a positive way, including mine. Help us help you in revitalizing Old Town. Now, being in business for 30 years, I'm going to tell you I've faced many challenges and every problem. Well, not every, but most. At any rate, what I've found is that with every problem, there's a solution. And we just want to assure the community that we are not going to impact their lives adversely. We are going to do everything we can, and we will find the way to take care of all of their concerns and needs. So with that said, please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Next speaker is Karen Steffes. Karen, come on down. Following Karen is Greg Schilling.
Karen Steffes, did you say?
Yep.
I'm here to speak up for Vito and his family. When my family was in trouble, my husband was sick and dying with cancer. They are community because when they came to me and told me they're having a spaghetti feed, they're making money to help me get my husband out of the hospital to get his prescription drugs. They threw a spaghetti feed and handed me all of the money. They are our community. You have to understand that they are there for our children. When my husband passed away, they were there. They were there with a bicycle for my son that was crying because his dad died days before. I just want you to all know that they are our community. I moved here in 1995. Vito was there for me when my husband was sick with cancer and dying. He was there for me after he died. He was there for my son, and he helped him be able to go on. They had Bob's Club Kids Days, and my son used to get to go every year. But the time that my son died, my husband died, On September 10th, they had it a couple days later. I didn't think I could bring myself, even before his funeral, to bring my son, but they begged me to bring him. And he entered the drawing for the bike that he wanted, and he really won it. And you know what? That changed his life that day. They are community. Their family helps our community. That's all I need to say. It just upsets me to talk about it still, but I want you to know that they are there for our community, for Elk Grove. And I think that they will always be there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Greg? Greg Sheelan. Following Greg is Randy Becker.
How you doing? So I'm Greg Schillen. I'm one of the newest members to, I've been in Elk Grove since 1973, but I'm probably the newest member to the Old Town. I own Babe's Lounge, and I'll be the first to say we were kind of innocent when we got into it. We weren't 100% sure. We built a patio, and we've been under some scrutiny for some music we've played in our back patio. So we're under the review board right now to allow us to be able to go through the regulations, and whatever you guys approve, we will always do what is necessary. But as much, I just wanted to show my appreciation for everybody, and I'm excited about what you guys have approved for Old Town. Like I said, I've been here. The building I bought, I was fortunate enough to know, me and my grandpa used to go there. My bar, Babe's Lounge, is named after my grandpa. It used to be called the Depot in the 1970s, and we used to go there for breakfast. We'd go get our hair cut where the brick house is. It used to be called Yarborough County. And we'd get our hair cut there. We'd walk next door and have breakfast every morning. So I've been in Elk Grove, and it's just part of my life. So I never wanted to, when I opened my bar, restaurant, I never wanted to bring any form of negativity to what you guys are trying to accomplish in Old Town. So I do apologize for the loud music, any commercial, any residential people that have had. We will definitely take the steps to make anything better, to make anything right. We're always here for any questions. Anything you guys have, I'm always here. On a side note, as much for Vito and Bob's Bar. Bob's Bar was one of the first bars I went to because it was the only thing local. There was like a bar when I was a kid, 21, and I couldn't imagine Elk Grove being without Bob's Bar. So whether Bob's Bar is across the street or where it's at now, it's the place. I mean, back in the day, there was the Bob Bar, there was Murphy's Lounge off of Grant Line, and there was the Why Not Club in Grant Line. It's now the Wrangler. Those are the places we all went to when we all turned 21. The Murphy's Lounge had they had a shuffleboard, awesome. Bob's Bar had pool tables, so we had our places to go to. So even though Bob's would be in competition, it doesn't matter to me. What I like is the dynamic of what Elk Grove is. And Bob's Bar is definitely part of Elk Grove. I'm fortunate enough to know, like my bar is a second business for me. I own a hair salon. I'm very fortunate. You guys have been very supportive. You guys allowed me to come in 2.5 years ago. I couldn't be happier. But I couldn't imagine Old Elk Grove without Bob's Bar. That's just because I grew up with it my whole life. Used to go there with my grandpa before he passed away. So I just want to thank you all very much. If you guys ever have any questions at Babe's Lounge, we're always here to answer. We'll take every step we need to make things right, and I definitely apologize for my innocence on opening a bar that I wasn't 100% sure what direction to go. So thank you all very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
you coming down.
Randy Becker. Randy Becker. Following Randy is Ben Santucci.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. This is the people's house and the people's business. Bob's Bar is an icon. You guys should be doing flips, and this city staff should be doing everything possible to ensure that success. Without it, all we have is a city that was created out of green pastures. Our town is on the east side. I've mentioned a number of times. It's not that we're all great friends. It's that we have the same memories. 43 years I've been in this town. And the same memories as someone that's been here 26, because the growth didn't start till the early 90s. So prior to the early 90s, we all run around the same places. When I tell you I have 1,000 friends, I can guarantee you that number's 1,000, if not more. Why? Because we all run around the same people. We went to all the same events that all you folks go to, and when we went there, it was someone you knew, not someone you were meeting most of the time. You knew everybody. From 1975 to 2093, I lived in Wilton. It doesn't matter whether you lived in Wilton or Sheldon or Harold, you were still part of Elk Grove, because that's where the high schools were, the junior high schools, and shopping. Everybody went to the grocery store because it was the only one that you could go to besides going to Sacramento. Now, the parking lot that he referred to on Railroad Street, is that part of the brick building? If it is, then we've got more parking issues, because if that takes off like we expect it to, we're going to be even more short with parking. So that shouldn't even be counted in. If that parking on Railroad Street that he talked about is for Old Town, then the brick building should have their own parking. Okay? Second of all, we can't continue adding one more thing to Old Town till the people on Kent, Webb, and Grove Street have a legal left turn to leave their home. We've added businesses, we've added homes to East Elk Grove on the other side of Waterman, but that area is non-protected. We've protected the folks on the north side of Elk Grove Boulevard at School Street with the light there. But there is no light for those folks. So until we can move forward, as I said weeks ago when we talked about the brick building, we have to have a transportation plan of moving people in and out of these facilities, and not through neighborhoods. That's unfair. So where's the light to Kent Street? Because it's got to be part of the process. It's not, but it's got to be. Without it, I'm not sure what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Our next speaker is Ben Santucci. Following Ben is Norm DeYoung.
I should have went before him. That's a tough act to follow. I'm Ben Santucci. I'm a vendor at Bob's Club. I've been a vendor actually before Vito, and I've been calling him Vito for 26 years, so I'll continue calling him Vito. Before Vito and his mom bought Bob's Club, we had a 45 jukebox in there. I do jukeboxes, pool tables, video games. At that time, it was known, it was a tweaker bar. They would close at night, and people would stay in all night and do whatever they do in there all night. Vito came in, and, you know, there's a politician recently went to Washington, said he was going to drain the swamp. Well, Vito drained the swamp. He came in, and he cleaned house, and he wasn't very popular at that time, and actually, our business was very good. And when he first came in and cleaned those people out, our business really wasn't that good anymore, so I wasn't real happy, but he had turned that business around, and it is a great business now. And I'll tell you, I have 150 more locations from Sacramento down. Matter of fact, I just heard about this meeting a few hours ago, and I drove down from Sacramento to support Vito. And we've been doing business for 26 years. I have contracts with almost all my locations. I don't have a contract with Vito. His contract is his handshake, and that's my contract. And all I could say is that if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And I have offered him other bars in the Sacramento area that were good deals that he could have moved up to. And he said, no, he wants to stay. He likes Elk Grove. He wants to stay in Elk Grove. This is where he started his business, and this is where he wants to stay. And I personally offered him at least 2 or 3 different deals over the past few years for him to move, and he won't do it. So, like I said, I'm just here to support him. I can't speak to the parking and all that kind of stuff, but I can speak a little bit to the noise. You know, when you come into a building like this and crank the music up, it sounds a lot different than in a building that's made to house the music. And when you get 50 or 80 people in a bar, it absorbs all the sound, so it's not as loud as you really think it is. And even if you close those doors and stepped outside, it would sound a lot different. So I know it kind of sounded terrible when it was in here, but it doesn't sound like that. You can't compare that. So I don't have much else to say except whatever, I will support him. We're willing to, I can easily spend $50,000, $60,000 in his building, just putting equipment in, and I would do that for Vito on a handshake without even thinking about it. So that's all I have to say.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. We have Norm DeYoung. Following Norm DeYoung is Constance Conley.
Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Norm DeYoung. What you've been hearing tonight is what's going on, what has been going on in Elk Grove for the last 30 years minimum. You're hearing from people that make up the fabric of this community. You're listening to people that have not a vested interest, but a community interest on moving this enterprise across the street. And all kinds of different concerns arise because it's moving across the street. But when push comes to shove, it's just moving across the street. There are things change. The Vito family, the Baker family, the Becker family, all the families that you've heard from tonight are telling you that things change. The dynamic of what Bob's Bar represents needs to go on into the future. We need your support on that tonight to ensure that Bob's Bar becomes one of the pillars of the fabric of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeYoung. Constance Conley, and following her is Gilbert Venegas.
Good evening. So how do you say no to an Elk Grove institution? I don't know how you do that. But the neighbors, surrounding neighbors and homeowners, that is their American dream. And I don't have a dog in the fight, other than I'm a 40-year resident of Elk Grove and actively involved, live in District 2, Aligners, and live a quiet life in the rural area. The only thing I ask is that there's a great book called A Fine Balance, and that's what I'm asking this council to do tonight. Find that fine balance, so these folks get what they want, but the neighbors also know that they've been heard and that their concerns will also be addressed. That is your charge. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our final speaker is Gilbert Venegas. Mr. Venegas.
Hello, my name is Gilbert Venegas. I own Elk Grove Security. We've been doing business with Bob Bar since I took over the company. I started here in my career as a security professional, and 28 years ago. The company Elk Grove Security has been around since '78. We've been doing business with Bob Bar since then, and we want to keep it that way. We are putting in one of the finest security systems, camera systems, available to put in there. We've also, in the past, helped out the police when incidents happened out on Elk Grove Boulevard. Whenever they needed footage of the cameras, we're always there to provide any footage that you guys have always requested from us. And I just want to let you guys know that, you know, he's a very great person, Alan Vito. So that's all I want to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Seeing that there are no additional speakers, want to close public comment, declare public hearing closed, and council deliberation and direction. Members? Vice Mayor?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to talk about this issue. It's great to hear a lot of the historical, you know, the families and some of the history. The project that the city purchased a while back was referred to many times as our intent to revitalize this area. I do believe that what Bob's Bar is doing will contribute to that. But I also want to acknowledge, you know, some of the concerns that we just heard about noise, about lighting in some of the alleyways, about too many bars, and then traffic on Kent Street, and then obviously the parking. I believe our conditional use permit process will allow us to analyze each application that comes forward individually. And so we'll be able to determine whether or not they're starting to get too many or the problems are starting to get worse. I want to make sure that if we are to approve this, I think parking is a one-dimensional issue. Look at Old Town. You're not gonna be able to cram more cars down there. It's just not physically possible. I mean, we're talking about accommodating with you know, the parking requirement here down to 500 feet, and only in occupied spaces of a facility. But we have to acknowledge that we've got to just start getting out of our cars. I mean, and the gentleman mentioned it earlier today. So if we approve this tonight, I definitely would like to, for the city, for us to sit down, one, bring in the property owners that own the parking spaces, and bring in the businesses that are, you know, that are going to be existing businesses that are going to be affected by it, and any new businesses, to talk about, again, a comprehensive plan to address, one, parking, but also let's talk about whether there's contracts with Uber, whether there's bike share, and then maybe a form of transit that is that frequents Old Town in that area enough to make it convenient for people that live nearby. Because if we can get folks there who live close by, find an easier path for that, they won't have to drive down there, which will free some space up for others to come in. And I think it would be more sustainable going forward. At the end of the day, you know, we're growing as a community. As more good things in terms of venues come down to Old Town, we're going to have to get used to some of the crowds that are coming down there. But I think we can do some things to delay that effect by helping, if we can, provide other modes of transportation around that area. So, and then I just wanted to ask a quick question to Bob Murdoch. Bob, is there a signal plan for Kent Street in the CIP?
We're actually looking at trying what to do with that intersection at Kent and Elk Grove Boulevard, whether it's a traffic signal. We've tried to see if we could fit in a roundabout, and it's a little bit tight, so
Okay.
we're looking at both options.
Okay, appreciate that. Maybe we get a report back when you have more information. That'd be great. So again, I personally support this application. I think it's going to be great going forward, but I want to just acknowledge some of the concerns that folks had, and I think there's a way, as Ms. Connolly mentioned earlier, I think there's a way where we can strike that balance, and we're going to continue to listen to folks. In other words, if this is approved and things go forward and problems persist, we're going to be here, this council will be here, and we will be proactive in addressing these concerns. Thank you.
Okay, members? Member Hume?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Let me start with a little personal background on this. Back when I was growing up here, Bob's Club was a joke, and not in a good way. It was kind of the club you used to tease somebody to embarrass them that they might patronize it. The respectable people drank down at the EG Club. Part of that was due to the fact that it was alluded to by one of the speakers that they used to be open 24 hours a day. They never closed down. Now you tell me what kind of an individual wants to be in a bar after they stop serving liquor at 2 until they start serving liquor again at 6. I never patronized Bob's Club during that time, put that on the record. However, since Vito took it over, Alan III, where are you at? Buddy, you owe me a couple dinners because I'm sure I put food on your plate because that man got into my pocket several weekends. I'd go in there and play pool. I saw the transformation while it was happening. I saw the transformation after it happened. And while Vito was not a popular person because he was running off what he considered to be the unsavory element, and he knew it was going to hurt his business originally because that was what the business was, but he knew he had the long play that eventually he's going to attract a better clientele that's going to do better for him in the long run. And I made the mistake, I'll call it a mistake, of hearing some hearsay in the bar one night, and I went up to Vito and said, hey man, I heard this thing about this accident with this other thing, and you know, and he pulls me aside, he goes, Pat, come on, we're going to go outside and we're going to talk about it. And he sat me down and he started laying me out on what he was doing, what his vision was, why these people are starting to chatter about him and all this else. And I said, hey, this is who I am and what my family's done. And we sat and talked for I don't know how long. And I had respect for him, he had respect for me, and I saw, all right, this guy's trying to change something. And he did. And as was mentioned, Bob's is an icon in Elk Grove for good reasons now. That being said, this decision tonight is not about Bob's Club. And it has much more far-reaching tentacles and implications, as was mentioned by some of the residents. A little bit of history, I was on the Planning Commission back when we put the Old Town SPA into place. And staff at the time, none of whom is represented now, they had it originally drafted that non-conforming uses, once the SPA was initiated, had to be vacated within 6 months or a year. Bob's Club, you're out. Mitchell's Auto Body, Wayne 76, there's the door. Sign Center, Happy Trails. And I reined them back in. I said, whoa, we can't do that to these businesses. These are existing businesses. This is people's livelihood. You're not just going to throw them out because you put some piece of paper that governed over top of them. So there were a lot of moving parts going on at that time, and I don't think we necessarily captured everything as well as it should have been. Now, it's set up to be reviewed every 3 years, and we're behind on doing that, and that's forthcoming, which I'm going to come back to why I think that's important. Now I'm going to give a mixed metaphor is that, you know, once you open up Pandora's box, you can't push the toothpaste back into the tube. And so, yes, I think that a CUP process is appropriate. I think that it's the right vehicle for this because it allows bites of each of the apples. But as has been mentioned, I think you set ourselves up for a slippery slope if we get to the point for whatever arbitrary reason that we determine we're now going to deny a CUP when we've allowed other CUPs. And I agree, more importantly, with the overall vision that our economic development staff, some of these folks that are property owners and business owners, and I think the vision of the council to turn Elk Grove into, Old Town Elk Grove into more of an entertainment, dining, nightlife, vibrant area. But we can't do that at the expense of the neighborhoods, because some folks want to live there because they enjoy the quiet. I think as it transforms, you're going to find other folks that want to live there because of the proximity to that energy. But that needs to happen over time, and I think it needs to be a measured approach. And so I'm going to suggest, with council's willingness, that we direct staff to figure out a way to limit this process or put restrictions on this process to maybe 3 or 4 CUPs, something that allows us to dip our toe into the pool, see how this is working out, see if the parking issues, how bad that really becomes, make sure we're addressing the concerns of the neighbors before we go hog wild. And, as was mentioned by another business owner that I sat down and met with, I've met with several in the past week, make sure that we don't blow past a saturation too fast, and now we harm everybody that's down there. So I'd like to ask staff to come back, date certain, if next council meeting, if they can get it, with a way that we can implement this process, but limit it, put some, because if we just open up the barn door and let the horse run out and we don't have our hand on a rein, yes, we have a process, but that process could go awry way too quickly. And I think the parking, we've kind of conflated the two issues into one another, but we need to really make sure, and we've got a solution coming, at least a partial solution in those 70 or 80 spots that's going to be added, but it's a serious issue down there.
So Councilman, I would want to add on to what I talked about earlier, looking for other modes to deal with parking, to your point, because I think no matter what we do down there, the intent is to bring more people down there. And so I think we want to find a way to do that, again, in a way that is, lack of a better term, it's sustainable. So again, giving other people options to get down there easier.
So I support what you're talking about 100%, because I think that is the long-term sustainable solution. I think that's more appropriate to be rolled into the triennial review of the SPA document and not necessarily bog down the folks who are under time constraints to be able to be nimble about what they're doing.
I'll clarify. Yeah, I agree. This is not something we're going to fix with this application. Absolutely. Yeah.
Member White?
Thank you. A lot's been said. I want to say, Mr. Vito, Bob's is an iconic place here in Elk Grove, but you, sir, are a celebrity and a legend here in Elk Grove. I'm enjoying hearing everything that everybody has said. You've positively impacted so many lives here, so thank you to everybody who's come out here and spoken tonight. And a couple of things that were said. Mrs. Conley mentioned it, but also I've heard from Mrs. Baird, Ms. Sue Hudson, and Mr. Rao, and it wasn't that they were against this in any way. They're for it. They just want to make sure that little things are looked at, for instance, the noise and the parking. And what I've heard tonight is that everybody's willing to work together. And so as we move forward with this, I do want to support, Bob's. I want to support Old Town, because I do believe that, as my colleague said earlier, the idea is to get more people there, whether it's also taking advantage of our Lyft and our Uber partners here in our community and ensuring that folks utilize that to get to Old Town. But I'm very supportive of this. I think it's going to be wonderful for Old Town. I'm not going to repeat everything Councilmember Hume and the Vice Mayor said, because I think they brought up some very strong points, and I think that's something that we want to look at. But what's really good to hear tonight is that I don't think anybody was against this at all. I think the folks that brought concerns were just concerns that they want to look at. And I think this is the first time I've ever been on the council where there was really no objections, but really we're supportive. We just want to work together. And as Ms. Conley had said it earlier, is that there's got to be a balance or a middle ground, something around there. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight.
So I think, Vito, you and I had this conversation probably about 6 or 7 months ago. And from the get-go, I've made it perfectly clear that the purpose in the work that I do is to make sure that businesses in Elk Grove stay in Elk Grove. And I think that your concern was legitimate from that get-go, is that it puts you in a situation in which you would not be able to continue. And so this particular amendment, I'm in support of Bob's Bar. I'm in support of the concept of amending it in such a way in which we would consider a case in a CUP. Other than that, I think it certainly is important to balance that and to recognize some of the concerns by the residents. But I think this approach is is in the best interest of the community. That being the case, I'd like to exercise Chair's privilege by motion of introduce and waive the full reading by substitution of title only, an ordinance amending the Old Town Special Planning Area relative to bars, breweries, wineries, and brew pubs. No further CEQA review required. Okay.
So friendly amendment that will add on Councilman Hume's suggestion about staff coming back at the next meeting with an analysis of perhaps limiting it to, I'm arbitrarily saying 4 CUPs, and a comprehensive analysis for other transportation modes to service the area.
So if your staff could chime in on that, what you're really talking about there is an amendment to the code. And what I understood Councilmember Hume to be asking for is staff to bring back a revised code to accommodate those. Am I understanding that correct, Councilmember Hume?
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
So we would need a substitute motion, and let me offer a substitution if for the council's consideration would be to continue this to a date certain. I would suggest September 22nd, assuming staff can do that. They're giving me the head nods. Bring this back on September 22nd as a date certain. And-
26th.
Excuse me, 26th, thank you. Not the 22nd, 26th. And bring this back to address the concerns from Councilmember Hume, to address the number of CUPs that would be available. We'll give alternative language to the council, and then you can consider that as a first read of the ordinance at that time.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm good.
So is that the council's motion?
What you said.
You need a mover and a seconder?
Yes, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. All right, next item.
Take us on to item 9.2, which is a public hearing to consider a general plan amendment, specific plan amendment, rezone major design review with design exception for driveway depth, voluntary merger of contiguous parcels, boundary line adjustment, lot line adjustment, entry removal permit for the park at Elk Grove.
Hey, Matt. Go ahead. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you and good evening. Matt Diaz, Senior Planner, City of Elk Grove. The project before you tonight is the park at Elk Grove. This project is located on the southwest corner of Civic Center Drive and Laguna Springs Drive within the Laguna Ridge.
If you guys could quiet down or go out into the lobby, please. We still have business to.
Hi, folks. Can we take it outside? Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz. Thank you.
No problem. This request involves a variety of different entitlements, the first being a general plan amendment to replace the existing commercial office and mixed-use designation with a high-density residential designation. As I mentioned, the Laguna Ridge specific plan is a primary regulatory tool for this area. So that coupled with a zoning map amendment, since both items are somewhat coterminous, sharing the same intent and boundary, this project would replace the existing business, professional, and office designation with the RD20 multifamily residential designation. In order to clarify a few items within the specific plan, it also involves a specific plan text amendment to allow residential care facilities for the elderly, as well as two-family dwelling units like duplexes when in conjunction with a multifamily use. And this is for the Laguna Ridge RD20 areas only. This project also includes a major design review with a design exception for driveway depth, and this is for the construction of the facility. This includes a 3-story, 135-unit senior housing facility with 8 associated single-story duplexes. It also includes a single-story, 41,000 square foot, 70-room large residential care facility for the elderly. It would also include on-site improvements such as lighting, parking areas, and landscaping. To reconfigure the boundary lines to match the new buildings, this will include a boundary line adjustment and parcel merger, as well as a tree removal permit for 9 valley oak trees, one of which is currently dead. Little background, in June 2004, the City Council approved the Laguna Ridge specific plan. In 2005, the city approved the Allen Ranch subdivision. While this project area was included within the boundary of that, no subsequent entitlements have been approved for this site. In 2017, an application was submitted and the applicant held a neighborhood meeting for this project. And in August 16, 2018, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the project with the addition of a new condition of approval for police service CFD annexation for the residential component. No public comments were received for this project at that meeting. This is an example of what the site looks like or currently looks like from Laguna Springs and Civic Center Drive. As you can see, infrastructure is already in place as the city has been relatively hard-packed and graded already. This is the site plan of the two facilities. To the left is the memory care single-story facility. To the right is the senior housing facility, with the main building being here and surrounded by the duplexes. This exhibit shows a little bit of the context of the facility into the existing Allen Ranch or Parkgate community. To the left, or which would be the south of both of these projects, you see the approved skilled nursing facility, which would be located at the northwest intersection of Lots Parkway and Laguna Springs. Here is an example of the general plan conversion from office, commercial, and multifamily to HDR. The same with the Laguna Ridge specific plan. This is converting business professional into RD20. The text amendment, again, would allow residential care facilities for the elderly, large and small, as well as two-family dwelling units in conjunction with multifamily housing requests, so that the dwelling units would not be allowed by right as a standalone use. Again, the rezone is very similar to the Laguna Ridge plan. As far as the design review, they are including a variety of different plant types. The project is consistent with all setback, height requirements, landscaping requirements. This exhibit indicates the setbacks for the building. There is approximately 20-foot setback for the single-family duplex, a 60-foot setback for the single-story memory care facility, and a 100-foot setback for the 46-foot tall senior housing facility. This exhibit shows a little bit of the on-site amenities. We're looking at bocce ball, gardens, activities for the senior residents. Here's another example of what the landscaping will look like for the memory care component of that. The dimensions, elevations are included in your materials. This is just a rendering showing the 3-story senior housing facility facing Laguna on top, and then the north section facing Civic Center on the bottom. This is a rendering of the single-story memory care facility facing Laguna. And here is an example of what the duplexes will look like once constructed. As mentioned, this also includes a lot merger and boundary line adjustment. Parcel 1 will contain the memory care facility, while parcel 2 will contain the senior housing portion. There is the areas indicating the tree removals that are currently on site, or removal of the trees that are currently on site. As this project is proposing a density that is 19.6 units per acre at 3 stories, this is significantly less than what could be allowed with the existing designation of mixed use, which could allow units of up to 15 to 30 at 6 stories in height. The center anticipates trips to be around 30 to 38 during peak. This did not trigger in a traffic assessment and is within the standards outlined for the street system. This project is also consistent with numerous elements of the general plan update. The current designation would actually allow noise, visual impacts, and lighting levels that would be higher than the proposed residential use. As there are no substantial change beyond what was previously analyzed within the Laguna Ridge EIR, no subsequent EIR or environmental documentation was required. In conclusion, staff recommends City Council find no further environmental analysis is required, introduce an ordinance to approve the rezone and specific plan amendment, and adopt a resolution declaring the city's intent to approve a general plan amendment as well as the design review for the construction of the facility. Should the council agree with staff's recommendation, the item following tonight, item 9.3, includes a consolidated general plan amendment, which would finalize the general plan amendment proposed in this application. The applicant is here as well as staff to answer any questions you might have for this project.
Any questions? No? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. On the language to the Laguna Ridge specific plan, the proposed changes there, the language regarding duplexes, does that have any reference to age-restricted uses, or is that made available for any multifamily use, in conjunction with any multifamily use?
That is made for multifamily uses in conjunction with RD20 within the Laguna Ridge specific plan.
But it makes no reference to age restriction?
No, it does not. This project contains conditions of approval that ensure the age-restricted housing remains with this project, but.
Yeah, but that's only specific to this project,
Correct.
whereas this language would be applicable throughout the remainder of the Laguna Ridge specific plan, correct?
For the Laguna Ridge RD20 sites, that is correct.
Correct. And so staff doesn't anticipate a problem with allowing duplex use essentially by right within an RD20 zone?
In conjunction with a multifamily house request, yes. The current plan actually encourages detached uses to add housing variety within the multifamily request. To add clarity to what detached housing means, as far as townhomes, cluster homes, we included language for the two-family dwelling to be included with that application, with a large, high-density application. So as a standalone use, a dwelling unit would not be allowed within those rights. But in conjunction with the use that matches the density of that zone, it would be allowed.
Okay, so that language already exists, it's being clarified here.
Clarified here.
And the multifamily use plus the duplex dwellings would still have to exceed whatever density requirement underlies that zone?
Correct. It would still have to meet the density requirements of that zone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions? No? Good. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're going to close public hearing open. Would like to invite the applicant or project representative, Caleb Perkins, with RG Developments to speak. That's RJ Development. I think I said
It
RG.
is, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Councilman. Actually, probably is Caleb, who should be up here instead of myself, but we work together. My name is Ron Hasty, and of course, Jim Gillum has been working with us, helping us walk through the proper processes here for this. I'm representing not only RJ Development, but Kelch Communities, who will be the majority owner and operator of this. Kelch Communities has been in existence, taking care of seniors since 1958. It is a family-owned business based in Washington State, but with a lot of properties throughout California. I'd like to also thank you for your time. I'd like to thank staff for their time and also the existing property owners for kind of working with us through different iterations to go through the processes to get us to this point. We love this particular location for our senior use. We often find ourselves, the perfect spot for us is we find ourselves in a transitional use where maybe we're close to some commercial, but also close to residential, other residential, in some cases single family. So we find that we become a nice, pretty quiet, low impact buffer for the residents in the single family areas from the commercial. And so that's our hope and our goal, and we often find ourselves in that position. We're looking forward to the opportunity to take care of 250 plus of our seniors here. This location is also great for us because it's right down the street from the senior center that is part of the new civic center that's under construction now, just a few hundred yards down the road. And I think our active adults in the independent living will really enjoy that and participate in the uses of that. So our studies have indicated, which is why we're here, that there is a significant unmet demand for these uses for not only active adults, but also the caring of folks with dementia-related diseases. And so the vacancy rates in this particular area are extremely low compared to national averages in a lot of other communities. I believe you've identified this in as well in the past as something you're interested in doing. So we're here confirming that I think what you had anticipated as a need is the math that we've done is showing that as well. This community, this active adult community, as Matt referred to, is a high amenitized community, lots of great things. We know that the residents really enjoy the opportunity to be together, have community, do things together, and yet have lots of activities that they can enjoy. We also know that Kelch Communities since 1958 has been caring for folks, and so the dementia care property there is something that they excel at and have for a long time. We've developed approximately 25 of those type properties with them throughout the western states, and they continue to just be a top care. They offer care levels that are beyond what's required from a licensing standpoint from the state of California, and it kind of goes on and on. So we look for great communities like Elk Grove because we believe that the kind of these really amenitized communities and high levels of care are in keeping with these type of communities. And so again, we're anxious and hopeful for the opportunity to be here and do that. So I think I'm done, and the buzzer didn't go off, so.
They didn't start the clock on us.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You have unlimited time, but please, we need sleep too, so
Understood. And I really don't have anything to add other than just to indicate that Jim Gillum representing RJ Development on this project, and we have Mike Matroni from Wood Rogers here. We're all available to answer any questions the council may have, and would like the opportunity, if there's additional speakers, to come back up at the end and provide any additional information that might be appropriate.
Okay, question, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering, Mr. Hastings, if you could, well, anyway, I spoke to your colleague, your partner, and Caleb and Mr. Gillum on the phone the other day, and I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on Kelso, that operator, because I know our council cares deeply about our senior community. These facilities that come in, I just want to, we always want to ensure that they're going to take the best care of those residents. And we had a conversation about the owner and what he does personally, and I'd like to just share that with folks, please.
Absolutely. Kelch Communities, again, as I mentioned, has been in taking care of seniors since 1958. Aaron Kelch, who is the principal there, grew up in a home where his parents started a business in Longview, Washington, of a nursing home and then assisted living properties and taking care of people. Their mantra and their mission is we treat people with care and respect and kindness, and that is honestly who they are. They are relationship-oriented people. They're small family business based on those principles, have grown from when we got involved, 6 properties and maybe 200 employees some 12 or 13 years ago, to now still very close-knit family business, but with about 2,800 employees. It's all based, and their success is just based on just that principle of really caring at the best level for the residents. A good example of that is in the memory care property. They provide 24-hour on-site nursing care. That is not a requirement of licensing, and that is definitely well above and beyond and is considered best practices. There is a very few folks in that business nationally that adhere to those kind of levels of care, and that is who they are. So that's a good example of that.
And if something goes wrong, who answers that call?
Well, what's amazing is Mr. Kelch himself gives his phone number out you will see him at, if we're able to move forward, at the grand opening of this property. He will talk to folks, and of course would love to have you all there and invite you. And you will hear him tell everyone that attends there that they are free to contact him directly if they have an issue or concern. And he means that to neighbors, he means that to resident families, and he's committed to keeping this a small family business. And I've heard him say, I don't know how many times, if it starts getting beyond what it is right now, we've grown enough. And so he's committed to that. And again, I can't speak highly enough for the way they really treat people with respect and care. The other thing I will tell you is his attention to detail is amazing. There is no deferred maintenance on these properties that he owns and operates. They are, first of all, they're monthly rentals. All the residents have a choice to stay or to leave. And so he believes, and we all have to believe, we're on our game every month and every day, making sure that everything's taken care of, that this is a place people want to live. And so even in the active adult piece, the independent property, that activity, treating people with respect, wanting to take care of their needs, no deferred maintenance, making sure their apartments are, clean, it goes on and on and on. I think you'd be very pleased to have them as a business here in this community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No? In our initial conversation, you mentioned the number of FTEs, full-time employment. If you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the dementia care property, with the 70 to 71 residents that would occupy that, the typical math ends up at about 60 FTEs. and all different types of jobs, from care aides to nursing to the executive director management positions to dietary aides. So kind of a varying level of types of jobs. Of course, there's maintenance, housekeeping, and a number of different things that I think, again, provide jobs at a number of different levels in a community. The independent living is really geared highly towards the dietary component. Lots of jobs related to that, the chef and his team, and of course all the folks that serve. And then of course there's significant housekeeping and maintenance as well that goes into that, along with some activities related employees. We also have amenities that we will bring in. We have a beauty salon. We will rent that out to a local proprietor who wants to come and rent the space and do things like that there. There'll be places for residents to come in and have an outside group come in and give massages and blah. So there's some other businesses as well that will be able to come in and be a part of this. So that independent living property calculates out to about 40 FTEs. So give or take about 100 FTEs in this project, direct jobs.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Sounds good. At this point, I want to open public comment, and I see one member of the public signed up to speak. Ms. Lynn Wheat, come on up.
Good evening. Surprisingly, I'm here to support this project, and I wasn't even going to say anything, but I get up here and complain, so I thought that you could listen to me for 3 minutes, support a project. We recognize that other developers have done their market studies, and we know that commercial and office just isn't viable within our community right now. So this is a great alternative. I liked the pictures. It definitely looks better than the barrack apartments that we have over off of Civic Center Drive. So I'm hoping that we can get that architectural style, and I appreciate the developer would do that because we don't really have architectural standards within Elk Grove. So I think this will really work out. He doesn't know yet, but we will have a hospital eventually right over off of Elk Grove Boulevard, so this facility would be close to meet the needs of those seniors that might need hospitalization or higher care. So I hope that you will continue to support this project as it is. It sounds like that the seniors there won't really be owning any of the properties there, which, so this really wouldn't pertain to it. But I was a little bit concerned if the seniors owned the duplexes, the CFDs for Laguna Ridge area that aren't fixed are costly, and some seniors live on fixed incomes, so that would be a disadvantage for them. But it sounds like they have ownership and that our seniors will be renting. So anyways, I hope that you'll continue to support this project. It looks like a good place and a good project, and something that definitely I can tell you from my medical background is something that is needed in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeing that there are no additional speakers, want to close public comment and invite the applicant for rebuttal.
You want to rebut the one positive speaker that spoke in favor of the project?
All right, thank you very much. I want to declare public hearing closed. Council deliberation and direction.
Mayor?
Member?
Yeah, I'll start off. When I don't remember if it was the applicant or the project or the property owner first approached me about the concept of this, it was intriguing because this type of a use, as was just called out by the mayor's question of how many full-time employees would this bring, it's not really residential, but it's certainly not office or commercial. And so it is, I think, employment of a different sort. The location, as was kind of alluded to by the project representative, I think is perfect in that it's removed a little bit from a major commercial corridor, abutting existing residential, but also, let's not lose sight of proximity to our forthcoming senior center. And so what a great synergy that would create for them to have that activity. And then the other thing that I really appreciated, in addition from the fabulous elevations, is the idea of kind of incorporating an age-in-place component to it, to where you've got the people who maybe still want to live in the duplex. Well, now the duplex is too much, and then they're going to go into the independent living, and well, maybe the husband or the wife starts to get a little memory issues, and so now they're on the same property but in a different building. And I think that that's an important thing from a kind of a dignity standpoint. As you know, I mean, old age is coming to us all, God willing, and I just think that's great. So I'm totally in support.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as you know, alluded to earlier, it's important to me about the operator, and I think folks heard it tonight. I think we're bringing in a very good operator who will take care of the residents there, and there by extension, our Elk Grove residents and seniors. You know, there's 10,000 people turning 65 every day throughout this nation, I believe, until 2029, I think is the statistic, if I'm correct. So as Councilman Hume noted, we're definitely an aging population, and so we need to ensure that we have the facilities, infrastructure, and services to support that demographic. So I think this is a great alternative use to what the original zoning was, and I'll be supporting this tonight.
Go ahead. Member Wayne.
You know, we had a really great conversation about the work that I do and how I felt like there's not a lot of people that understand Alzheimer's and dementia and how that's a disease that is definitely growing in our community. And so I'm very much pleased to hear that you have this here at this facility for this community. And that, again, I'm a workforce development person, and we talked about that. So I'm thankful the mayor brought that up about how many jobs it will bring, because they're not just jobs, they're great skilled, great paying jobs for folks that hopefully, you know, live in our community, an opportunity for folks within our city to be able to have a chance at that. So thank you for flying back here again, and thank you for doing this and bringing this to us. And then I think the best part was that you met with our Parkgate community, and that they really appreciated this as well too. So thank you for that. With that, Mr. Mayor, if you weren't going to say anything else, I'll go ahead and.
Sure, I just want to add, you know, my 2 cents. I met with you. I love the project. I was impressed with the outreach to the Parkgate community. The feedback that I got was that you were willing to sit at the table and make some adjustments, and I think that is a clear signal as to the type of partner that we want in Elk Grove, is to be willing to sit together with the local residents and try to figure out, you know, how to move forward. And so, you know, I commend you for that, and thank you for reaching out to each and every one of us. And if you like, go ahead and make the motion.
Do that. Motion 1, introduce and waive the full reading by substitution of title only. An ordinance finding no further environmental review is required under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to state CEQA guidelines section 15162, and approving the specific plan amendment and rezone for the Park at Elk Grove project, EG 17038, assessor parcel number 1322150-014, -015, -016, -017, and -029.
Second.
All right, got a motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention. All right, next motion.
Motion 2.
Got a motion.
Second.
Got a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention. All right, next item.
Take us on to item 9.3, which is a public hearing to consider actions approving consolidated general plan amendment for the previously approved Mendez property and Poppy Keys Southwest rezone project and the Park at Elk Grove project.
Thank you and good evening. Matt Diaz, Senior Planner, City of Elk Grove. The project before you is a consolidated general plan amendment. This is the second amendment proposed to the City Council this year. As Elk Grove is a general law city, we are limited to 4 general plan amendments. When staff anticipates numerous amendments per calendar year, they make an effort to consolidate those amendments within the 4 actions. This would consolidate actions for 2 projects. The first of which is the Mendez Poppy Keys project, which was first heard by the City Council, I believe, in August of 22nd. I believe the second reading was included in tonight's presentation or consent calendar. The other item is the Park at Elk Grove, which you've just heard at item 9.2. This is an exhibit of the approved land plan under the Mendez and Poppy Keys rezone, as this is the Park at Elk Grove project. Staff recommends you find no further environmental review is necessary for this consolidated amendment and approve the amendment finalizing the general plan action for both items. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions? There are no questions. Perfectly clear. Thank you. At this point, I want to declare public hearing open. I want to open public comment. Seeing that no members of the public signed up to speak, I want to close public comment. Declare public hearing closed, and Councilor Blairson and direction. Yep. Members?
I guess I'll make a motion.
All right. Got a motion? Got a second? All in
Second.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, next item.
Takes on to item 9.4, which is a public hearing to consider the 25th annexation to Stormwater Drainage Fee Zone 2.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Kara Taylor Seaman. I'm a finance analyst at the City of Elk Grove. I am here to present for your consideration public hearing for an annexation to the stormwater drainage treatment, or drainage special tax, sorry. Trying to do too many things at one time. As you are aware, the city does maintain 8 special tax districts. The requirements are unique for each one. And there are varying requirements just according basically to the design of the project, whether they're residential or non-residential, as well as geographic conditions. The annexation into appropriate districts are factored both on those things. For most of the, well, for all of the tax districts, there is annual adjustments that can be based on consumer price index or construction cost index, and then there's a couple where there's no adjustments at all. The project for your consideration tonight is Milestone. This is a residential project located in the southeastern area of Elk Grove. There's 121 single-family residents, and the conditions of approval require that they annex into the stormwater drainage fee zone. There were other annexations that were required for the project. Those were completed several years ago, 2005 and 2006. This is just general area of Elk Grove and where the project is located. It is just off of Waterman Road, south of Elk Grove Boulevard. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions? There are no questions. Perfectly clear. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
At this point, we'll declare public hearing open. Want to open for public comment. Seeing that no members of the public signed up to speak, want to close public comment. Declare public hearing closed.
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
Mr. Clerk, could you
Second.
read the ballot tabulation, please?
With my microphone on, there is no majority protest of 121 possible votes weighted according to the proportional financial obligation for each equivalent dwelling unit. 121 affirmative votes were returned. Ballot approves the proposed assessment and the proposed inflation adjustment limit described for the parcel identified in the ballot, and a resolution determining the levy assessments in the districts available for council consideration.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Next item.
Take us on to section 10, our regular agenda action items and recommendations, starting with item 10.1, which is a review of the Elk Grove Residents Guide strategy and to provide appropriate direction.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kristen Nelson, the city's Public Affairs Manager, here to talk to you tonight as part of a follow-up item that was direction from the dais last April. You'd received an update from the city clerk that provided some information regarding the city's governance, voting structure, demographics, and election history. And at that meeting, you requested staff to evaluate the potential for a broader outreach and education campaign for residents. Staff's reviewed the report and conducted some initial outreach with a cross-section of the community to review existing resources and explore strategies to inform and educate the community. We have a number of existing tools within the city's marketing and public information toolbox. I just kind of wanted to share those with you. That includes our bi-monthly direct mail newsletter, which currently has a circulation exceeding 58,000. That's every other month, of course, bi-monthly. We have a very robust website. I think as you hear from the city manager's report, We have a lot of stuff on there, and we're constantly directing people to go to the city's website for more information. And last year, we had 441,000 unique visitors to that site. We also continue to have a regular conversation with the community on our social media platforms, and we continue to gain a steady following with 57,000 followers across our platforms currently. There was a national citizen survey. We do this every 2 years, and the information that we gleaned from that is that most people are getting their information about the city's local events and government from the newsletter or the website. We're the two leading sources of information for city news. And so we think that those are still very strong contenders and point to the effectiveness of both print and online materials coming out of the city. In kind of reviewing the presentation that the clerk had made and the requests that the council had provided, we started doing some initial legwork and conducted some meetings with a variety of different city departments. We explored some discussions with local realtors, as well as a cross-section of community members and other service providers. And in looking at what you asked for and what we heard from those groups, we had a few findings that there really is no current singular resource that exists in the area that provides perspective to residents about local services and their providers in one source. We no longer have a welcome wagon service in town, so prospective or new residents really have to go to a variety of different sources to get information to acquaint themselves with what's available here. And when we talked with the realtors, they were telling us that more likely than not, they're providing an email to prospective residents that has multiple links that are driving people to a variety of websites to get information, and there's no one hub for that. When we talked with residents, they wanted some easy and convenient tools that provided information when they needed it for what they needed, and they needed a kind of go-to source. So from that, we are talking about a proposed residence guide, which could be used both by prospective residents, our real estate community, and our existing residents if they're not familiar or looking for some help on where to go and what to, who to talk to for assistance, then that could be a really great resource. The city's kind of taken on this idea of becoming a hub for information. Since we're not a full-service city and we're served by a multitude of local organizations and agencies, we try to direct people and kind of point things in different directions, but become a hub for that kind of information. And as we've been looking at it more and more, we definitely think that we would need a multi-prong approach. So there's still a lot of value in print, but there's certainly a need for digital. We are continuing to bolster the mobile app that the city has and communicating with people on social media. So we think that there will need to be a variety of approaches to take to educate our community about those services. We would like to take this project, if the council is willing, and work with our new Office of Strategic Planning and Innovation and really kind of flesh out more what the community wants and what the residents need and find out a bit more about not just what we think they want, but really kind of test it and develop a prototype, because a print piece could potentially be somewhat expensive when we were pricing it out and trying to get an estimate, thinking that we would need about 70,000 copies of a print piece to do a direct mail, and then have some extra for our real estate agents or maybe our local offices and that sort of thing. If we're giving them out at events, it could be potentially around a $60,000 expense to do a print piece. So we want to make sure that whatever we provided, if you're making that kind of investment, we're doing it right and we're providing the kind of information people really say they want and need. So tonight was just kind of an overview to present you with this idea moving forward, and we wanted to get any additional feedback you had on topics or outreach. In the staff report, there was some suggested potential topics. That all of this would be produced in-house. We'd certainly try to use some of the content that we've already created and repackaging it in a new way wherever it's possible. But those were just kind of suggestions, and as we move through kind of this Bloomberging process, prototyping process, it could change a little bit, but that's what we're proposing at this point. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? There are no questions. Excellent. Thank you. Want to open public comment? Seeing that there are no members of the public sign up to speak, want to close public comment? Council deliberation and direction. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Great work, Kristen, to you and your team. I like this list going forward. I like the path you're on, so I'd love to hear as you reach out to the community more and research, love to hear what you come back with.
Okay, Councilmember Hume.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Continue the exploration because it sounds like you're getting good feedback. I don't know that I would be in favor of doing a direct mail. I think that's spending a lot of money to reach potentially households that don't exist anymore, or that don't care, and that gets thrown in the recycle, hopefully at least. But I like the idea of having that hub kind of portal interface.
Okay, Member Nguyen.
Kristen, thank you for that. So I agree. I don't know about the direct mail piece, but I will say I know that packet that the realtors give when you buy a home, and it's excellent. It's got everything in there from changing your PO or your mailbox, PO box, Best Buy gift, 10% off from Best Buy, things like that a new person moving into the city would probably utilize. And it'd be great if we had something similar to that. If people came to City Hall, that we can give them just a little packet with all the things you need to know. I love our website. I think our website does a wonderful job at going on there and directing you into areas you need to go to. I think one thing I'd maybe like to take a look at is, do we offer it in different languages, and the variety of languages that are spoken here in our city, and that if there is resources for that. Because as you know, we're very diverse here in our city, and not everybody read or speaks the English language, and if we can explore that, that'd be great.
I like the direction that you're going. The only thing that I would suggest along the lines with Councilmember Nguyen is saying is there are tools in which you can convert like something as simple as like a website over to different languages. I would encourage you to explore that as for possible. It just shows a city that's inclusive and our willingness to educate those people who don't necessarily speak English. The other thing I would probably recommend is not only just with the realtors, but also with the new home development, is to have the same type of package in which a welcome packet or what have you that would include all of this information. I think that would be pretty useful. But I look forward to what you have in the future. So thank you. All right, there's nothing else. Let's move on to the next item.
Take us to item 10.2 to consider an ordinance repealing section 16.1 and 20.120 of the Elk Grove Municipal Code governing the City of Elk Grove Impact Fee Deferral Program to remove the expiration clause.
Good evening, Mayor Lee, Vice Mayor Suen, Nathan Bagwell, members of the council, sorry. Nathan Bagwell, I serve as the Senior Management and Budget Analyst in the Finance Department. The item for your consideration this evening is the Impact Fee Deferral Program. I have a brief presentation here for your consideration. The recommendation before you is essentially to repeal a section of the ordinance that is the expiration clause for the program. A little background about this is the program allows for deferral of certain impact fees, specifically capital facilities, affordable housing, the roadway, and the citywide fire development fee. It was created in 2008 during the recession. This was intended to stimulate development as well as commercial activity. It's been extended 4 times, and it has proven to be a useful tool for both residential and commercial purposes. And it also aligns with Council's strategic imperative to solicit new business and provide incentives and support for small businesses. Specifically regarding non-residential commercial, this program has become a valuable incentive tool. It has attracted and expanded business and creates jobs. In the course of the history of the program, $8.5 million in deferred impact fees has resulted in the construction of over 230 homes, 737,000 square feet of commercial space, totaling approximately $50 million of construction value. The fiscal impacts While there is no impact to the general fund, the impacts of the, as mentioned in the staff report, the time value of money, the delay of receipt of the impact fee funds, however, that is partially mitigated by the additional 2% interest rate added on to the local agency investment fund rate for non-residential projects. On a positive impact, use of the program may induce new development and new growth, resulting in increased tax revenues. So again, the recommendation is to go ahead and make this a permanent program. That, of course, is contingent, as always, upon the program would stay in place unless expressly directed otherwise by council. But that is staff's recommendation to go ahead and repeal the expiration clause. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have about this.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Nope, no question. Perfectly clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Want to open public opportunity, public comment opportunity. See no members of the public sign up to speak. Want to close public comment opportunity. Council deliberation and direction.
Mr. Mayor, I move to introduce and waive the full reading by substitution of title only an ordinance repealing section 16.120.120 of the Elk Grove Municipal Code governing the Elk Grove fee deferral program to remove the expiration clause for the program.
Got a motion? Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Next item.
Take us on item 10.3, which is receive an update on the Kimmer Road Extension Project.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Kevin Busey. I'm the Capital Program Manager for the City of Elk Grove. I'm here to talk about, provide an update on the Kimmer Road Extension Project. So we have a shovel-ready funding approach for the project. Key to that approach is completing CEQA and NEPA, advancing the design, and advancing the right-of-way. That will allow us to pursue grant funding for the project. It'll put us in a really good position once we get to those three steps. Moving forward to CEQA, which is that first step, in July of 2017, the JPA became the lead on the CEQA document. In February of 18, they released the draft ISMND for public comment. In April, we received public comment. Since that time, we've been dealing with a variety of comments, in particular Caltrans comments. Caltrans is asking for the I-5 Hood Franklin interchange bridge to be widened. They're also asking for the I-5 HOV and auxiliary lanes between Elk Grove Boulevard and Hood Franklin. We've gone through a variety of traffic analysis at Caltrans' request, and at this time, we have not been able to find that those improvements are needed. The project does not trigger those improvements. Right now, we've been working since about April trying to convince them of that, and we've gone through quite a few iterations of that. We have, they do still have concerns, and one possible solution that we've discussed with them is a separate MOU talking about those improvements and how maybe the city could participate that and what would trigger that as far as the volumes in that area. And we're going to continue to work on that. It's a possible agreement. If that agreement is able to move forward, we could have CEQA completed in December of 18 and then NEPA in summer of 2019. I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall project and some progress that we're making beyond just besides the CEQA area. So our plan for the project is, given that we have limited construction funding, the highest priority is to reconstruct the existing Kimmer Road and then work our way east to west, generally speaking. You'll see here, we have Lent Ranch to Bighorn, which is this blue section here. We received a $3 million SB1 grant combined with local funding. That project is fully funded. We're in design and right-of-way right now. One thing nice about this particular area, it's covered under the Southeast Policy EIR. That gives us a little more flexibility, and there's no federal funds involved. So we will be looking at a potential spring 2020 construction date for that particular blue segment shown on this map. The next section is the Bighorn to Bruceville. We just recently applied for a $6 million SACOG grant. If we were able to get that, we could go to construction in 2021. That is contingent upon us getting through the right-of-way and the CEQA NEPA process, though. Bruceville Interstate 5, we've already started design on that as well. Right-of-way should start in summer of 2019, contingent upon CEQA and NEPA getting completed. Construction for that is not currently funded. We need about a $21.7 million grant. So going back to the shovel-ready approach, if we can get through environmental right-of-way design, we're going to be in a really good position to get grant funding. There's two different approaches for that. We can do these small asks like that $6 million grant that we were pursuing with SACOG, and we can ask for these much larger grants, which we have been doing, and we've been working with the JPA on some of those bigger opportunities. That's really all I had. I'm available for any questions you guys may have.
Any questions? Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Kevin, thank you for the presentation. So I noticed a lot more signals down there, and I was just wondering, I always want to come back to roundabouts work so well, and I'm just wondering, maybe some of these intersections we can't do because it's too much traffic, but have we looked at any of these other ones that might be possible to incorporate a roundabout in there?
So we are looking at the roundabouts. We're talking with the GAPA and the county as well about roundabouts. It's possible that roundabouts could be a good interim solution for the 2-lane project. And then when we go to the 4-lane, we'd probably go to the signals. And they'd be all interconnected signals, and that would be looking at. That's what we're looking at right now.
Okay.
So
All right. I'm just glad to hear you guys are still analyzing that part. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good. No questions. All right. Thank you. At this point, I want to open public comment. I see one member of the public sign up to speak. Randy Becker, come on up.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. First of all, I find it kind of strange that the roundabout question came up. If you go back history, that was an expressway. Expressway from 50 to 99 to I-5, and actually Interstate 80 and connect all the way around to Roseville. If you've been in some of the bigger cities like Portland, Seattle, this is a similar concept. And because of many, many factors that we don't need to go into, we're left with signal lights. You guys can do whatever you want with it, to be honest with you, because some of us that are our age don't really care, because the mess will be left to the 40 and 50-year-olds or the 30-year-olds to live with. The one question I did have before the roundabouts came up, what happens if the gas tax is rescinded? What part of the project, if all the project or pieces of the project is left or gone? As a voter, that concerns me of information, because when I go to the ballot, I may decide based off of that because of shovel-ready or close to shovel-ready projects that's going to benefit our area. May not benefit me when I have to pay almost $1,000 for my new truck every year, but it is something that interests me. So I'd be interested in that if that tax is rescinded by the voters. Thank you.
So, I don't know if you want to take it or not. Randy, a lot of that money we have already. So
Okay.
we have gap. The gap is about 23 million that we're trying to find, and we're applying for a grant program. But
So a good portion of it is set aside already?
yeah, yeah.
So
For
yeah,
the
for
Camera
some-
Road
The
piece,
camera road piece, yeah.
The camera road.
not the overall connector.
I get that.
Right.
I get that part.
Yeah.
That's
And-
why I was wondering.
So specifically to your question, I would say it doesn't put the project or the connector in jeopardy, but it certainly delays the delivery thereof.
Right.
Because it's been delayed 40 years.
Well,
plus.
longer than that. This is the third time we've tried to do. And then to your other question with respect to expressway versus having signalized lights, bear in mind that in all these early discussions, we're talking about phase one.
Right.
And so it's less roadway width, it's less, and then ultimately, hopefully, we're going to build into it the ability to go to some grade-separated interchanges so that it will have that free flow movement that you
I would hope so. I would hope that it would turn into something like Highway 65 from the old days as running down Washington Boulevard to Lincoln, versus what it is today.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mix of that, and then if you remember Highway 50, where you come
Sure.
jamming along, and then you hit Placerville, and you go, "Rrrr," and you come
Yeah.
driving through Placerville, and then you
Yeah.
go jamming along again.
Right, right. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Just to
Oh, go
clarify, I
ahead,
think we believe if SB 1's repealed, we would lose the $3 million grant? We would lose
Yeah.
the $3 million grant that we're planning on to build from Lots to Bighorn.
Lots of big one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Want to close public comment and council relation and direction? All right.
Yeah.
Well done. Next item is 10.4, which is consideration of voting members to the Historical Preservation Committee. We have two that applied. We have two spots open. Want to go on record that Mr. Tarnaski did reach out, and we had a very fruitful conversation. He shared with me his experience in Galt, and he's a resident in Elk Grove now. That being the case, I'm going to push both of them forward, asking for support from the council.
I think they're both very qualified candidates.
Okay?
Yeah, oh, that too.
Excellent. All right, that being the case, let's adjourn this meeting at 8:54 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Not quite 7, but.